The Strongest Sect. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526, Winning the Championship. Because of the special nature of the iron nail beef, the 9 Iron family members did not start cooking immediately after the competition began, but considered how to cook it. While they were thinking hard, Liu Wanshi picked up 2 kitchen knives and began to skillfully disassemble and chop the iron nail beef into several pieces. She selected 70% lean meat and 30% fat meat and chopped it finely and roughly until the minced meat was the size of rice grains. "Are you going to make beef dumplings?" Jun Changxiao said with his chin in his hand. No, the dumpling filling should be more minced. Could it be? Jun Changxiao suddenly thought of a dish and thought to himself, Dudu is going to make braised lion's head. That's right. Liu Wanshi is going to make braised lion's head. This is a famous Huayang dish, also known as four joy meatballs. Swish. After chopping the iron nail beef, Liu Wanshi followed the recipe steps, added various ingredients to the fat and lean meat, and then made it into meatballs. Whoosh, the firewood was lit, and a lot of oil was poured into the pot. After the oil was heated, the meatballs were put into the pan and fried. What is this dish? Meat buns? Looking at the meatball-shaped beef, the warriors watching the battle were at a loss. The 9 direct descendants of the Iron family also started cooking after thinking hard. To be honest, they had no idea at all. The main reason was that the texture of the beef was too special. If there was any mistake, it would definitely not be a delicacy. Let's talk about Liu Wanshi. When the beef balls were fried in the oil until golden, they were removed. Pour out most of the oil, leaving a small part. Stir fry rapeseed and shredded carrots. Then pour in the fried meatballs. Add soy sauce, water, and cooking wine. After simmering on medium heat for 20 minutes, the beef balls were cooked, and the lid was opened, before adding the ingredients. At this time, a fragrant aroma wafted out of the pot. Many warriors subconsciously sniffed it, and the whole person was immediately intoxicated. What a good smell. Jun Changxiao was surprised. He had eaten braised lion's head before, but he didn't think it tasted so good. Could it be because of the iron nail beef that it exuded such a fragrant smell? Swish. Liu Wanshi poured 4 beef meatballs into the plate and poured some oil on them. A famous Huayang dish, 4 joy meatballs, was out of the pot. Everyone's eyes were staring at the delicious dish of meat and juice, and they swallowed their saliva subconsciously. The eyes of the 10 judges were also shining. If the other 9 contestants hadn't finished yet, they couldn't wait to try it now. Liu Wanshi, who was a little reserved at first, let go of her hands in the third cooking after the first 2 warm-ups, so a 4 joy meatball was quickly out of the oven. The faces of the direct descendants of the Iron family were extremely ugly, because when the fragrance came out, their mood was disturbed. Especially when they saw the impatient look of the 10 judges. They secretly guessed that, if they had a bite, they might have to give full marks. When warriors fight, distraction is the most taboo. Cooks who are cooking should also not be distracted. However, with Liu Wanshi's delicious dishes in front of them, it was obviously difficult for them to control their mentality. Half an hour later, the 9 direct descendants of the Iron family finished their dishes one after another in a state of upset, but they were all dejected when they put them on the plates. They had their own answers in their hearts as to how the dishes were cooked. 10 dishes were placed on the display stand. Before the elders of the Shen family spoke, the judges gathered in front of the braised lion head. Some picked up chopsticks, and some picked up spoons. The old man took a bite first, and his body suddenly stiffened. Each piece of beef was wrapped in juice, and it was not only fresh and delicious when bitten, but also very chewy. The iron nail beef has a hard texture. If the heat is not controlled well, it will be difficult to cook it, and even the shredded meat will get stuck in the teeth. When Liu Wanshi made the 4 happiness meatballs, she also fully considered the characteristics of the meat, chopped it up, fried it first, and then boiled it, so that the juice could penetrate into each piece of beef, so as to maintain the elasticity of the ingredients and make it fresh and delicious. After tasting it carefully, the old man commented, "Stunning. Delicious food on earth." Lin liver and phoenix marrow. A delicacy on a jade plate. Very popular. The 10 judges gave their comments one after another, and all kinds of idioms praising food came out of their mouths. The eyes of the warriors watching the battle were full of strong envy and jealousy. From the fragrance of the third menu, it can be seen that it is definitely a top-notch delicacy. If I can have a bite, I will definitely be extremely happy. Everyone, the elder of the Shen family said, give it a score. 10 points. 10 points. The direct descendants of the Yang family really knew what was going to happen. Liu Wanxi's third dish still got full marks. This undoubtedly created a new record in the cooking competition. 3 rounds of competition, 3 full marks. Of course, the competition is not over yet, because the 9 dishes made by the direct descendants of the Yang family have not been scored. In fact, the warriors know that there is no need to score. Since it is a competition, it must be fair. After the 10 judges rinsed their mouths, they began to try the other 9 dishes. As a result, the 9 dishes made by the direct descendants of the Yang family all got 0 points. When the last person's score came out, everyone was completely stunned. The Yang family, who has been focusing on cooking for hundreds of years, actually got 0 points in the cooking competition, and 9 of them together. This is incredible. There is nothing incredible. The direct descendants of the Yang family were disturbed and could not cook with peace of mind. There were also frequent mistakes in the control of the heat and the materials. Although they barely completed it in the end, it was not up to standard at all. If it were other foods, even if there were mistakes, the taste would not be too bad. But the key is that this is iron male beef, and the slightest flaw will affect the taste, so the 10 judges can only give 0 points. The third round is over. Liu Wanxi won again with full marks, and won the championship. When she went on stage to receive the award, she was very excited and said, "Here I want to thank my head, thank my senior brothers and sisters. Without them, Liu Wanxi, would not be here today." Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, "This girl, she really used the acceptance speech I gave her." Yang Jun, who was standing next to him, was full of bitterness. If he had taken more care of his daughter and cultivated her carefully at the beginning, perhaps she should thank herself the most. Of course. Liu Wanxi held the trophy and said, "I also want to thank my father. It was he who gave me birth to this world and made me understand that by combining food and materials, you can make delicious food that makes people linger." Yang Jun was stunned. Gradually, his eyes became moist. "My daughter, as long as you can forgive your father's past mistakes, I should thank you." Finally, I would like to thank the Yang family. Without their difficulties and bullying, I would not leave the Yang family, would not wander outside, and would not. At this point, Liu Wanxi couldn't help but shed tears. However, there was always a smile on her face. After adjusting her mood a little, she proudly said, "I'm fortunate to be a disciple of the Strongest Sect. This girl." Jun Changxiao shook his head and said in his heart, "I'm also proud of you." This day, the cooking competition ended. Liu Wanxi's 3 rounds of full marks will become an unsurpassed existence in the cooking competition. The 9 direct descendants of the Yang family all scored 0 points and will be nailed to the pillar of shame forever. This day, after receiving the award, Liu Wanxi gave a speech of thanks for the award, which deeply touched the students of Juang Hall. Strongest Sect. What kind of sect is it? It can make a girl with extraordinary cooking skills look proud when she shouts out the name of the sect. Decision. Huoling said secretly in his heart, "I want to join the Strongest Sect." Chapter 527. Don't force anything, just let it go. Liu Wanxi won the championship of the cooking competition. Normally, the competition should have ended, but the warriors who watched the competition still did not leave. Because there is still one link, that is, the final stage. The dishes made by the contestants will be auctioned publicly, and the highest bidder can taste a bite. Yes, 1 bite. The 10 judges gave such high praise to the braised lion head. Many warriors must be itching to try it. The 9 dishes of the Yang family all scored 0 points. Even if they were paid, they would not try it. The head of the Jun family, who was originally planning to take Liu Wanxi away, heard Yang Jun say that there was such a link, so he stood there waiting with interest. Not long after, The elder of the Shen family walked onto the stage again and said loudly, "I believe everyone can't wait. So the herbs collected in the final will be officially auctioned now, with a low price of 10,000 teals." 10,000 teals? Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, "Who has the money to burn and spend the price of a spirit stone to eat a bite of food?" Poverty limits the imagination of the head of the Jun family. When the auction started, many martial artists from big families rushed to bid, and the price went from 10,000 to 100,000 teals in a short time. The corner of Jun's mouth twitched. 100,000 teals for a bite of food. The rich people in the royal city are really showing off. Under normal circumstances, no one is willing to spend 100,000 to eat a bite of food, but Liu Wanshi is a contestant who scored full marks in all 3 rounds. The 10 judges are also experts in eating above, giving such high evaluations. The food is absolutely delicious, and it is definitely worth spending a lot of money to eat a bite. The first martial artist won the qualification to taste the braised lion head with 100,000 teals. He took a bite with a small spoon, and the whole person stood still, as if his soul flew to the sky. My god. After a while, the warrior shouted loudly, "It's so delicious. Is this too exaggerated?" No, no. The next auction must be one to see what is so extraordinary about this champion dish. So, the rich martial artists continued to compete to bid. Finally, a dish of braised lion's head was tasted by more than 10 people in turn, and a total of more than 2 million teals were obtained. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Dudu's dishes are so popular that he can open a restaurant. More than popular. All the martial artists who have eaten them are amazed and have endless aftertastes, and they believe that it is really worth it to spend money to have a bite. Seeing that Liu Wanshi's dishes are so profitable, the organizers also took out the previous home-cooked dishes and sweet and sour carve and auctioned them again. The first 2 dishes are already cold, and the taste are definitely not as good as before, but many martial artists are still happy to bid just to taste the food made by the champion. Master Jun, the elder of the Shen family, sent the space ring and said, "According to the rules of the cooking competition, the dishes made by the champion are auctioned, and the profits are divided 50 to 50 with the organizer. This is the 3 million teals that your disciple deserves." That is to say, Liu Wanshi's 3 dishes were auctioned for a total of 6 million teals. Even the home-cooked dishes she often made in the sect were sold for 1 million teals. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched and said, "Dudu cooks in the sect every day. According to this price, wouldn't my disciples and I spend billions for a meal? No, no. Opening a restaurant must be considered seriously." Liu Wanshi won the championship of the cooking competition, scored full marks in all 3 rounds, and the 3 dishes were sold at sky-high prices. In a short time, the news spread in the royal city. There is no doubt. This 11 or 12-year-old girl will definitely leave a heavy mark in the history of cooking in Yangzhou, southwest China. The Yang family, who have been cooking for generations, unfortunately became a foil. The 9 direct descendants got 0 points and became a laughingstock for others to discuss. First, the venue was smashed, and then they were severely defeated in the field they are good at. The Yang family has completely fallen. The next day, the warriors in the city were still discussing yesterday's cooking competition. At dawn, Sect Master Jun took Liu Wanshi and Yang Jun away from the royal city. After participating in the competition for half a month, it was time to return to the sect. "Master," Liu Wanshi asked in confusion, "didn't you say you were going to recruit disciples at the academy? Are you going to leave without even one?" Jun Chang smiled and said, "Don't force anything, just let it go." Oh. Liu Wanshi understood. The 3 walked out of the city gate along the street. On the way, many warriors cast awe-inspiring eyes. The master of the sect from the 9th class small county had done something in just a few days in the royal city that made them admire him very much. "Teacher Jun." At this moment, a shout came from behind, and Huoling quickly caught up. Jun Chang smiled and stopped, saying, "No class today." Hu. Huoling stopped, put his hands on his knees, bent over and gasped, and said, "Teacher Jun. Teacher Jun, I want to join the Zheng sect." The surrounding martial artists looked surprised. This is the direct descendant of the Huo family, one of the 8 major families in Wangcheng. According to their strength, they are not inferior to the 4th or 5th rate sects. I didn't expect that they would take the initiative to apply to join a sect. Why do you want to join? Jun Chang laughed. Huoling gradually calmed down his rapid breathing and then said loudly, follow Teacher Jun, you can learn real skills. What else? Follow Teacher Jun, you can become a strong man. What else? Follow Teacher Jun, you can have a good meal. Puff. Liu Wanshi covered her mouth and laughed. Jun Changxiao said seriously, it's not impossible to join the Tegu sect, but no matter how noble your status is, as long as you enter the sect, you will be an ordinary disciple. Understood? Huoling shouted loudly. He had the idea of joining the Tegu sect yesterday, and went back to the family to discuss it with his father. He insisted on his own opinion, and wanted to join anyway, even if he was happy to be a miscellaneous disciple. You are a student of the academy now. Teacher Jun, I have applied to the dean for early graduation. There is also this operation. Jun Chang smiled and said, in that case, follow me back to the Tegu sect. Yes. Huoling hurriedly bowed to Liu Wanshi and said, little senior sister, please accept my respects. This kid is really good at flattering. Teacher Jun. There were shouts from the city gate again, and all the students of Juanghe ran over. They shouted loudly, we want to join the Tegu sect too. Among them, there was Chu Xiunan. He refused at first, but his father called him home yesterday and threatened him with a whip, saying, my son, you must join the Tegu sect. The talented descendants of the big families in Wancheng collectively shouted to join the Tegu sect, leaving passers-by dumbfounded. Why do you want to join? Following Teacher Jun, you can make a name for yourself. The students of Juanghe shouted in unison. In that case, Jun Chang smiled and said, why don't you line up quickly? Swish, swish. 39 students of Juanghe lined up. Jun Changxiao looked towards the royal city, raised a smile on his lips, and said, Dean Situ, I will take your students away. Sita Heoan, who was in the academy, shook his head helplessly. He was asked to be an honorary tutor to teach students, but after teaching for a few days, he abducted all the students. Family heads. Jun Changxiao said again, I will take your direct descendants back to the sect to train them. If they can't make a name for themselves in the future, you can come to the sect to settle accounts with me at any time. Master Jun. A deep voice came from the city. My son has an arrogant personality, so I will trouble you in the future. It's Master Chu. Everyone exclaimed in unison. Goodbye. Jun Changxiao bowed and took the direct descendants of the big families in Xianyu Royal City back to Tegu sect in a mighty manner. Although the heads of the major families did not come to see them off, they were also releasing their spiritual thoughts. Watching their direct descendants gradually disappear, they secretly said in their hearts, I hope this decision is right. Chapter 528, who will compete with the top 3. 39 of the 40 students in Juanghe followed Jun Changxiao away. The only one who didn't go was Princess Hanglian. She stood on the academy building, watching the students gradually leave, with a complicated look in her eyes. Hanglian. Sita Heoan said, haven't you thought it through yet? No. Princess Hanglian said. Sita Heoan shook his head and said, in my opinion, you want to stay and help your father manage the city. Princess Hanglian was silent. City Lord Mu had no sons, only her. Now that he is old, his former ambitions have gradually faded, and he only wants to pursue martial arts, so all the big and small things in the city are handed over to Mu Hanglian to handle. Managing the royal city is not an easy task. Sita Heoan said, City Lord Mu shouldn't give you such a heavy responsibility. Princess Hanglian smiled and said, Master Jun is so young, but he can run a sect well. How difficult is it for me to manage a city? Can a sect be compared with a royal city? Sita Heoan shook his head and said, in fact, you can go to the Tegu sect to practice first, and then come back to take over the royal city after you have completed your studies. Princess Hanglian said, it still depends on my father's decision. She also wanted to join the Tegu sect and learn advanced martial arts, but she could not leave the royal city without her father's permission. Sita Heoan muttered in his heart, if your father knew about sect Master Jun, he would probably take you to join the sect himself. What does this mean? He is the double king of sword and martial arts, and a master of martial arts. He is a son-in-law who can't be found even with a lantern. It just happened to make up for the pretense that he pretended to have gone out after drinking that year. The students of Juang Hall were taken away by Jun Changxiao, and the hearts of many students of Xianyu Academy followed him. Teacher. A student mustered up the courage to say, "Can I apply for early graduation?" Why? I also want to join the Tegu sect. Dean. In the meeting hall, the vice dean said with a stern face, "Many students apply for early graduation and want to join the Tegu sect. Then let them go." Sita Haoan said. The vice president collapsed and said, "At least 3,000 people have applied." Sita Haoan said seriously, "Students have their own choices, and we as teachers should support them." The vice president said, "Okay. So, all students who applied for early graduation were allowed to graduate." In a short time, many young talents packed up their luggage and headed for Qingyang County. The officers of various sects outside the academy got the news and collapsed collectively. Many students were selected by them in advance, and they used countless means to recruit them during the period. Now they all joined the Tegu sect. Isn't this a waste of time? Alas. An elder of the sect sighed. So many outstanding talents have entered the Tegu sect. Once they rise, they will be unstoppable. This is what he said. It's as if the Tegu sect will become stronger in the future, supported by the students of the academy. Why are so many students carrying their luggage out of the city? I just got the news that they all applied for graduation in advance to join the Tegu sect. Can you apply for graduation in advance? The warriors in the city were dumbfounded. As the martial arts temple of Southwest Yangzhou, Xianyu Academy has countless young geniuses who hope to enter it for training, and even hope to stay for further studies after graduation. Applying for graduation in advance? What a coquettish operation. Of course. Some warriors can guess that so many students choose to graduate early and join the Tegu sect, which means that this sect can make them stronger. What is intriguing is that students from Juang Hall have also joined the Tegu sect. These people are from big families, and their strength is not weaker than that of 4th and 5th rate sects. Why are they willing to let their direct descendants go to a 6th and 7th rate sect? There is no denying that the head of the Tegu sect is very powerful, but the sect is just in its infancy, and sending the direct descendants to him for training is obviously a gamble. Just as the warriors in the city were arguing, another heavy news came out. The Southwest Yangzhou Certification Center released the latest issue of the sect potential list, and the sect ranked first was the Tegu Zhengzheng sect. What made everyone's eyes widen was that this sect not only directly landed on the top of the list, but also ranked in the top 3 in potential evaluation. Top 3. Oh my god, the Tegu faction is top 3. The King City was in an uproar. Since the establishment of the certification center, the highest potential evaluation of the sects in Southwest Yangzhou has only been the first class. Many warriors often joked when they were eating and chatting, "I don't know if I can see a second class sect in my lifetime." The jokes of the past have now become a reality. No, it's higher than that. Because it's not the second class, but the third class. Sects with this kind of potential are rare even in the entire Xinjiang continent. The sect potential list released by the certification center is not only circulated in the King's City, but also released in various cities in Southwest Yangzhou at the fastest speed. Iron Bone Sect is the third class? How is this possible? The Taixo Unholy Sect, which is now famous all over the world, only gave a potential evaluation of the second class back then. After seeing the list, all the martial artists in the city were overwhelmed. Haha. In the hall of the Chu family, the head of the Chu family laughed heartily. Letting his son join the Iron Bone Sect was opposed by the whole family, but he insisted on it under great pressure. Now that the Iron Bone Sect's potential has been rated as the third class, it means that his decision is very correct. As for the group of elders who opposed, they were all silent at this moment. The head of the Huo family and other family heads were also in a good mood, because their direct descendants had become disciples of this top 3 sect. The families that can gain a foothold in the royal city and remain prosperous for many years are not fools. The Tegu sect rose in a short period of time. If Jun Changxiao did not have real talent, he would never have been able to do it. So letting the direct descendants join the Tegu sect was also a gambler's mentality to try. They bet right. The future of the top 3 Tegu sect is limitless. Great Helmsman, a subordinate from the demonic sects branch, hurriedly reported, just received the news that the latest issue of the sect potential list is out. The Great Helmsman said impatiently, "Is this little thing worth reporting?" The subordinate said, "Report to the Great Helmsman. The sect that ranks first in this issue is the Heng sect." Huh. The Great Helmsman was surprised. Is the potential level 3B or 2B? In his opinion, the sect that can occupy the top of the Southwest Yangzhou sect potential list must be at least this level. The subordinate hurriedly said, "Report to the Great Helmsman. The potential given by the certification center is 3A. 3A. The Great Helmsman said, "Sure enough." Wait. He was stunned and said, "Are you talking about 3A or 3B? 3A. The Great Helmsman stood up and said in disbelief, "The Tegu sect's potential evaluation is 3A? Yes," said the subordinate. "Bullshit." The Great Helmsman said, "How could there be a top 3 sect in this barren southwestern Yangzhou?" The corner of his subordinate's mouth twitched and said, "It is clearly written on the list. It is indeed top 3. Chapter 529. Who dares to mess with me? Why did the certification center suddenly announce the Iron Bone Sect's potential to be among the top 3? Because Jun Changxiao agreed. Isn't this guy low-key? Why did he suddenly become high profile? He used to be low-key because he was afraid of unnecessary trouble. Now that he has the cultivation of the sword and martial arts kings, he is not inferior to the peak martial king who is about to enter the martial emperor. Naturally, he can be high profile. What's more, he is also the honorary tutor of Xianyu Academy. Jun Changxiao doesn't believe that in this southwestern Yangzhou area, who is blind enough to dare to provoke him. No, absolutely not. The chief helmsman of the demonic sect branch was so shocked that he couldn't recover for a long time after confirming that the Iron Bone Sect was among the top 3. The god-killing temple also widened its eyes after receiving the news. A top 3 sect. Absolutely unlimited potential. Helmsman, a master said, "There is news from the royal city that the head of the Iron Bone Sect has become an honorary tutor of Xianyu Academy." The corner of the mouth of the helmsman of the god-killing temple twitched. Previously, he instigated the major evil sects in Huaiang County to besiege the Tegu sect, but was frightened away by a martial emperor, which made him very unhappy. Originally, he was thinking of finding a time to call a master from the headquarters to have a meeting. Now, he can only forcefully give up the idea, let alone the top 3 sects, which are protected by the certification headquarters. Just the identity of the honorary tutor of Xianyu Academy, he must weigh it. Moreover, the master said again, many direct descendants of the 8 major families in Wancheng have also joined the Tegu sect. The corners of the mouth of the helmsman of the Temple of Killing Gods twitched violently. This Tegu sect. I'm a small branch. I really can't afford to offend. Zuo Cheoguan, the governor of Zhejiang County, also received the news. After seeing the potential list of sects, he frowned and said, "It turned out to be the top 3. County governor." A councillor said, "The certification hall gave such a high evaluation. The Tegu sect must have great potential. If it is allowed to develop, it will be difficult for our Zhejiang County to annex Qingyang County." Zuo Cheoguan frowned even more tightly. He had great ambitions and wanted to build a wider county. Qingyang County was also in his plan. Now that there was a top 3 sect standing there, it would be very difficult. Forced attack. Zuo Cheoguan didn't have the courage. He was afraid of Xianyu Academy and the major families in Wancheng. Damn it. Zuo Cheoguan said angrily, "If I had known that the Iron Bone Sect would bring such a big obstacle, I should have taken Qingyang County a few years in advance. Now that things have come to this, there is no point in complaining." The news that the Iron Bone Sect had the potential to be the top 3 shocked Southwest Yangzhou, and also shocked many forces and martial artists. In fact, this shock could have come earlier. It's just that the head of the Jun sect at that time wanted to develop in a low-key manner, so he suppressed it for a long time. Defending Qingyang City made the martial artists in Southwest Yangzhou remember the Iron Bone Sect, which was not well known, and the certification of the potential top 3 made everyone remember it in their hearts. In the mountains and fields, Jun Changxiao and Liu Wanshi rode the Hurricane Wolf slowly on the road. The Yang family and Huoling hired a lot of carriages and were chasing behind. Comfortable. Jun Changxiao spread his arms and shouted lazily. During the trip to Xianyu Royal City, Liu Wanshi not only won the championship of the cooking competition, but also recruited dozens of talented disciples. Of course, she was in a good mood. However, there were also regrets. After so many days, she only completed one side task and obtained 2000 contribution points. The system said, "Host, just be content." Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task, great reputation, and obtaining 2000 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value of the sect. 9702/10,000 point. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task, triggering the hidden reward, and obtaining one top grade qualification transformation liquid, which has been delivered to the space ring. System. Jun Changxiao murmured, it should be that the news of the potential top 3 has spread throughout Southwest Yangzhou, not just in Southwest Yangzhou. When the news spreads like a strong wind, the entire Xinjiang continent will know about it, and it will inevitably cause more widespread discussion. Great reputation, well deserved. Master. Liu Wanshi said, let's hurry up and get going. After being out for so long, she was worried that her fellow disciples were not getting enough nutrition and were all starving. Not to mention, without Liu Wanshi's food, the disciples of the Tigu sect were really devastated, so much so that the food cooked by the second senior brother tasted tasteless. Many disciples squatted in the martial arts field, howling in their hearts, "Doo-doo, come back soon." "No hurry, no hurry." Jun Chang smiled and said, "It's rare to come out, so you should enjoy the scenery along the way. This guy's really not in a hurry to get going. As long as he passes by the city, he will go into play." In particular, when he heard that the warriors were talking about the Tigu sect and were shocked by the potential of the top 3, his face suddenly raised with pride. From obscurity to fame, it is absolutely full of a sense of accomplishment. Master Jun is coming to our city. Suddenly, someone shouted out of nowhere. "Oh, I wanted to keep a low profile, but I was discovered." Master Jun shook his black and shiny hair and posed in a chic and coquettish pose. Where? Here, I'm Jun Changxiao. Everyone come to worship me." The warrior who spoke earlier shouted, "Master Jun is recruiting disciples in Huaman Lao. Everyone go and see. Go. Passers-by on the street swarmed over, their eyes full of excitement and admiration. Jun Changxiao was stunned. He was clearly standing on the street. How could he be in a building? Wait. Master Jun's face suddenly darkened, and he said, "Someone is impersonating me again. Still recruiting disciples? Huaman Lao, a famous place for eating, drinking and having fun in the city. At this moment, the streets are already crowded with people. Whether martial artists or ordinary people, they are all looking up at the second floor. Their eyes are full of unparalleled admiration." At the entrance of the restaurant, 4 big men in black stood with their hands behind their backs, just like bodyguards. "I'm the head of the Ren family. I wonder if I'm qualified to go upstairs and meet with Master Jun." A middle-aged man in brocade clothes said respectfully, "You need to pay 10,000 taels to visit Master Jun." A strong man in black said proudly, No problem. The head of the Ren family hurriedly handed over a silver note of 10,000 taels. "Go in." Several strong men in black guarding the gate gave way, but they remained proud. "To see Master Jun, you have to pay 10,000 taels of silver. It's very good to spend some money to see this kind of sect leader with top 3 potential. He is the double king of sword and martial arts, and a mentor of Xianyu Academy. Not to mention 10,000 taels, even 50,000 taels will have people rushing to see him." The warriors on the street were talking about it. At this time, the heads of the families paid 10,000 taels to obtain the qualification to enter Huaman Lao. The warriors without money could only stand outside and watch, hoping to see the face of the leader of the Tigu sect from the second floor window. Make way. Jun Changxiao squeezed in from the crowd. Because there were too many people, he couldn't squeeze to the door after squeezing for a long time, so he shouted, "Who dropped the banknote on the ground?" Mine. The people nearby all lowered their heads to look for it. Jun Changxiao relied on the little space left and successfully squeezed to the door of Huaman Lao. Just as he was about to go in, he was stopped by the big man in black, who said, "Little guy, if you want to go in and pay a visit to the leader, you need to pay 10,000 taels." The corners of the leader's mouth twitched slightly. "Damn it, I want to go in and see myself, but I have to pay money. What's going on here?" Jun Changxiao threw the 10,000 taels of silver notes over and successfully entered Huaman Lao. He said angrily in his heart, "I want to see who is so bold as to pretend to be me and recruit disciples in this city." Chapter 530. Watching him act cool. With the current prestige of the Tigu sect, no one dares to provoke Southwest Yangzhou, but someone dares to impersonate Jun Changxiao. Look. In a small city that is not very large, there is a person who calls himself the Jun sect leader, who is openly recruiting disciples, and you have to spend 10,000 taels of silver to visit him upstairs. What a guy. As soon as Jun Changxiao climbed to the second floor, he saw several large round tables in the hall, with 40 or 50 people sitting upright. One is 10,000 taels, so many must be 400 or 500 taels. Damn. Definitely a new business opportunity. In the future, when I have no money to spend, I can go around and make money. While thinking, sect leader Jun found an empty seat and sat down. The big shots in the city subconsciously glanced at him and said to themselves, "This boy looks a little unfamiliar. He should not be from the city." "My friend," the head of the Ren family whispered, "what is your name?" In his opinion, those who can spend 10,000 taels to come in and pay a visit to sect leader Jun must have a certain amount of power. Jun Chang smiled and said, "Don't you see? The water of the Yellow River comes from the sky, rushes to the sea and never returns. I'm Li Bei, with the name Tai Bei and the nickname King Lian Jushi." The system said, "How about billion from a pharmacy?" The big shot in the restaurant twitched his mouth slightly. This guy who hasn't even grown all his hair has a name and a nickname. Does he really think he is a master? Master Ren saw that this kid was a bit capable, so he ignored him and waited quietly for Master Jun. Jun Chang smiled and didn't say anything. He grabbed the melon seeds on the plate and cracked them. Pa. Pa. The sound of cracking melon seeds came from the quiet second floor. The big shots sitting at the table frowned one by one. This kid has no quality. Master Ren, who was sitting at Master Jun, moved to the side, his eyes full of contempt. "Everyone." At this moment, a gentle voice came, "Sorry for the wait." At the entrance of the third floor stairs, a handsome young man in white clothes came down waving a paper fan. He had a small and exquisite waist badge hanging around his waist, on which were engraved the 4 words Iron Bones. Master Jun. The bigwigs in the city stood up one after another. Subconsciously glanced at Jun Changxiao next to him, because this guy was dressed very similarly to Master Jun. Damn it. This guy pretended to be me, and the impersonation was quite real. However, he looked a little awkward, and couldn't be compared with the handsome me. The heads of the major families all stood up, but Jun Changxiao was the only one who sat down, so he successfully attracted a wave of hatred, making everyone's eyes glow with anger. Everyone could tolerate eating melon seeds in public. Now that Master Jun is here, sitting down is a great disrespect. The young man in white raised his eyebrows slightly, showing a hint of dissatisfaction, but still said gracefully, "Everyone, please sit down." Everyone sat down, not forgetting to give Jun Changxiao a cold glance. How could such an unruly person go to Huaman Lao? Pa. The sound of cracking melon seeds came out again. Patriarch Ren could no longer bear it, and stood up and scolded, "Mr. Li, in such a solemn occasion, if you want to crack melon seeds, please go out and do it, don't disturb others." "What's the matter?" Jun Changxiao raised his orchid finger and cracked another melon seed, saying, "It's on the table, can't people eat it?" Everyone's mouth twitched. The fruits on the table are nothing more than decorations. Who is shameless like you to eat them? Master Jun. Jun Changxiao said, "You come and judge." The young man in white smiled and said, "This friend may be greedy, it's okay to eat a little, everyone doesn't need to care." Master Jun, what you said makes sense. Patriarch Ren sat down, but still glared at Jun Changxiao. "Everyone." The young man in white said loudly, "I accidentally passed by Guilin City and saw the purple air lingering in the sky. I knew it was a place with many talents, so I decided to recruit disciples here. Everyone was overjoyed. Guilin City is not big. Although it is under the management of Wangcheng, there is not even a city lord. It is absolutely an honor to be praised by Master Jun. Jun Changxiao muttered secretly, this kid is quite good at bragging. The system said, if he can't brag, how can he use everyone as a monkey? What he said makes sense. However, if you dare to pretend to be my name and cheat outside, you are destined to be a decent person in your life. Alas. The young man in white said, it's a pity that mighty Strongest Sect can only recruit 10 disciples in Guilin City. Everyone was stunned. They were willing to spend 10,000 taels to go upstairs. Seeing the face of Master Jun was only one of them. More importantly, they hoped to send their own direct lineage to the Tegu sect to practice. Now there are 40 or 50 people present, and only 10 disciples are recruited, which is troublesome. Master Jun. Patriarch Ren said, can't you recruit more? The young man in white shook his head and said, when I recruit disciples for my Tegu sect, we pay attention to the right time, right place, and the 5 element. I just did a divination. Although Guilin City is a Feng Shui treasure land, it is facing the east, which is taboo, so I can only recruit 10. More than that would be against the will of heaven and earth. Right time, right place, and the 5 element, and it's facing the east, and it's taboo? Is this the master? This is a charlatan who is cheating in the world. So that's it. Everyone suddenly realized. Patriarch Ren bowed and said, Master Jun is knowledgeable, and I admire you very much. Brother, do you believe this? Did your IQ get eaten by a dog? If it were me, readers would definitely criticize the protagonist's halo and the villains and passers-by for being brainless. Of course. The young man in white said loudly, when I recruit disciples, I mainly look at their birth dates. If they are compatible with my Tegu sect, they will naturally be accepted as my disciples. Damn. Absolutely a charlatan. Jun Changxiao wanted to slap him. He held back. He wanted to quietly watch this kid pretending to be cool and quietly watch how this kid cheated. The system said, host, are you sure you don't want to learn? Don't say it. This guy really wants to learn. After all, he can use it to recruit disciples in the future. A genuine person learning cheating in front of a fake one is really very strange. Master Jun, the head of the Ren family said, Ren has brought the birth dates of several direct descendants of the family. Please take a look and see if they are destined to be with the Iron Bone School. Jun Changxiao opened his mouth. Is it so particular to bring the birth dates of the direct descendants of the family when going out? Wait. Why is there a corner of the silver note under the birth date post? I understand. It's not to see if there is a connection with the Iron Bone School, but to use the silver note to sneak through the back door. The young man in white took the birth date handed over by the head of the Ren family, and the silver note underneath slid into his sleeve. This technique, this speed. Jun Changxiao's heart rose in capital letters, convinced. Master Ren. The young man in white carefully looked at the birth date and said, the 5 element of these 2 direct descendants of your family are compatible with those of my Tegu sect. I can accept them as my disciples. Thank you, Master Jun. Master Ren said happily. Others looked at him with envy. The direct descendants of the Ren family can enter the Tegu sect with great potential in the top 3. Their future achievements must be limitless. Master Jun. A family head said, this is my son's birth date and 8 characters. Please take a look. When handing it over, he stuffed a few banknotes underneath. Because the method was clumsy, the people present could see it clearly. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched violently. When recruiting disciples, most of them are to confirm with their eyes. This guy used birth dates to cheat money. Damn. Why didn't I think of it? Chapter 531 I'm the leader of the Iron Bone Sect. I'm laying my cards on the table. Today, Jun Changxiao has broadened his horizons and benefited from it. It turns out that there are so many ways to make money. Not bad. The young man in white who received the silver note looked at his birth date and said, you are also destined to join my Tegu sect. You can be accepted as my disciple. This is a fate with money. Master Jun. A family head hurriedly bowed and said, I will send someone to get the birth date. Can you wait for a moment? The young man in white nodded. So, dozens of family heads present went downstairs, contacted the servants outside, and went home as quickly as possible to get the birth date of their direct descendants. After about a moment, the heads of the major families brought the birth date of their direct descendants. They learned from the head of the family, and when they handed it over, they all stuffed silver notes under the post. Some stuffed 10,000, some stuffed 20,000, and some stuffed 50,000 directly. The Tegu sect is now famous. These family heads naturally hope that their direct descendants can join the sect and have extraordinary martial arts in the future, so it doesn't matter, even if they spend some money. Jun Changxiao shook his head secretly and said, "What a poor bunch of people." The young man in white took the birth dates and read through them one by one, saying, "Your direct descendants are destined to join the Tegu sect, so I will reluctantly accept all of them." Everyone was overjoyed. Master Jun. At this moment, Jun Changxiao suddenly said, "Didn't you just say that Qi Chang Dang Fang is against the taboos, so you can only recruit 10 disciples, otherwise it would be against the will of heaven? How come you recruited dozens of people at once?" The young man in white frowned slightly. The head of the Ren family said angrily, "Boy, I think you are here to make trouble." The heads of other families were also furious. It was not easy to spend some money to let their direct descendants join the Tegu sect. If this makes Master Jun unhappy, it must be very fucked up to only recruit 10 disciples. No. Jun Chang smiled and said, "I heard that sect Master Jun is a man of principle. How could he go back on his word?" System Crash said, "You still brag about yourself like this? I've learned something new." The rage on the face of Patriarch Ren became even stronger. Just as he was about to speak, he was stopped by the young man in white, who smiled and said, "My friend, you may have misunderstood." Misunderstanding? Jun Chang smiled and said, "What do you mean? Boy, let me see how you brag." The young man in white said, "The direct descendants of these families are compatible with the 5 element of my Tegu sect, which can just resolve the evil spirits. As the saying goes, among the 5 element, yin and yang, heaven and earth." He said a lot. From theology to philosophy, Sect Master Jun was stunned. This guy's really a talent. "My friend," the young man in white said, "do you still have any questions now?" "Humph." The head of the Ren family said coldly, "Master Jun has the demeanor of a great man. He won't argue with you. If it were me, I would definitely kick him out." "That's right." Someone glared at Jun Chang and said with a smile, "Boy, don't make trouble here. Get out of Huaman Lao as soon as possible." "Oh, this group of people is hopeless," Jun Chang said with a smile. "Master Jun, I heard that you are the double king of sword and martial arts. I wonder if you can show me your skills?" "Oh, my god. This guy is getting ahead of himself." The head of the Ren family shouted angrily, "Boy, who do you think you are? Why should Master Jun show you his skills?" Everyone glared at him. If Master Jun hadn't been there, they would have taken action long ago and thrown this troublemaker out. The young man in white smiled gently and said, "When I use my power, I will consume a lot of spiritual energy. I need a lot of tonic herbs to adjust it, so it is inconvenient to release it to others." "Haha. Are you afraid of being exposed?" Jun Changxiao waved his hand, threw the million taels of silver on the table, and said loudly, "If Sect Master Jun can open Lee's eyes, this million taels can be used to buy tonics." "Boy, impersonating me is just to make money. Come on. I'll give you 1 million taels. I want to see how you can pretend." The white-clothed boy's eyes flashed with a gleam. Obviously, he was very tempted by the million taels. The faces of the heads of the major families who wanted to kick Jun Changxiao out showed astonishment. This boy can easily take out 1 million taels. His identity is probably not simple. Could he be a young man from a big family? Sect Master Jun, a family head said, "Why not let everyone open their eyes?" Everyone's eyes flashed with expectation. The Sect Master Jun standing in front of them is the double king of sword and martial arts. This has not appeared for thousands of years. If you are lucky enough to see it, you can definitely brag about it for most of your life. In that case, then satisfy this young friend's wish. The white-clothed boy waved his hand and took the silver note away. "Oh my god. He really dares to accept it?" The system said. What he said just now was clearly a demonstration with money. You are giving money away with a flattering face. Are you stupid? Aren't you stupid? To be honest, a little stupid. Okay. I will expose this fake later. If he doesn't spit out all the money he cheated, I will write my last name as the head of the sect backwards. The young man in white stood up and said, everyone, in order to avoid hurting everyone, I can only release it a little. Everyone was excited and moved back involuntarily. Hoo-hoo. At this moment, two vast auras emerged from the young man in white. One was thick and the other was sharp. Everyone opened their mouths in shock. As expected of the double kings of sword and martial arts, the momentum of the explosion is so fierce. Jun Changxiao was dumbfounded. This fake is also the double king of sword and martial arts? No. Jun Changxiao kept releasing his spiritual thoughts. Although the aura in the room was strong, it did not penetrate outside, and the warriors on the street did not notice it at all. It seems that this kid must have used some means to create a kind of momentum similar to the two kings of swordsmanship in the room. There are some tricks. No wonder he dared to cheat so blatantly. After a while, the momentum permeating the room weakened, and the young man in white said, my friend, are you satisfied? Damn it. Just bursting out with momentum, I earned 1 million taels of money. The money is too easy to make. You insisted on showing off. The system added. Jun Changxiao stood up and said, Master Jun is strong and admirable. I wonder if you can have a sparring match with Lee. He can easily take down this liar, but it would be interesting if he had to expose him in public. The young man in white has been restraining his emotions all the time. When he heard the other party propose to spar, his face suddenly darkened. Boy, the head of the Ren family slammed the table and said angrily, are you done yet? The others couldn't help it either. They were afraid that this guy would anger Master Jun away. Everyone. Jun Changxiao said lightly, you are all intelligent people. Don't you think that the one standing in front is a liar? How dare you? The young man in white shouted in a deep voice. Whoosh. The momentum of the two sword kings who had just retreated permeated again, several times stronger than before. Everyone was shocked. They knew that sect leader Jun was angry. Boy, the head of the Ren family said coldly, to anger sect leader Jun is to commit suicide. Why don't you apologize quickly? Jun Changxiao ignored him and continued to release his spiritual thoughts. He found that the momentum in this floor was strong, but the people outside still had no reaction. In other words, the tricks played by this kid have certain limitations. Hey. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, I won't pretend anymore. I'm the leader of the Iron Bone School. I'm showing my cards. P.S. There will be 2 updates today, and there will be a burst of updates after 12 noon tomorrow, starting at a minimum of 10 updates. Chapter 532 Who is the fool? Is he the leader of the Tigu sect? The heads of the various families in Huaman Lao laughed. I was wondering why this kid and sect leader Jun were wearing similar clothes. It turns out that they were not wearing the same clothes, but were pretending to be each other. Is this guy stupid? He pretended to be sect leader Jun in front of sect leader Jun. The corner of the mouth of the head of the Ren family twitched, and he said, everyone, in my opinion, this kid is probably a lunatic. I think so. He can take out 1 million taels casually. He must be a lunatic from a big family. Sect leader Jun, calm down. There is no need to argue with a lunatic. Jun Changxiao clenched his fist. What a bunch of idiots. Humph. The young man in white retracted his momentum, waved his hand and said, kick this lunatic out. I don't want to see him for a moment. Hoo-hoo. As soon as the voice fell, a majestic and heavy momentum instantly spread in the restaurant. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the vases placed around were shattered on the spot by the surging momentum. The airwave blew everyone's hair and blew their eyes shut. Jun Changxiao, who was bursting with momentum, glanced at everyone with cold eyes and said lightly, I want to see who has the courage. The system said, why don't you just arrest people directly? You have to force yourself to show off. Spend 1.01 million taels. Can't you show off? Yes, yes. The system said, money can buy your willingness. Jun Changxiao wanted to expose this liar, and also let these poor family owners understand who is the real head of the Iron Bone School, so he directly burst out the momentum of the two kings of sword and martial arts. Free. Not spending a penny. Outside, everyone felt the majestic and cold momentum, all widened their eyes, and all said excitedly, it must be the head of Jun who burst out his cultivation. This head of Jun, of course, refers to the liar, because they would never think that the young man in white is a fake, and they would never think that there is really a Jun Changxiao inside. The doubtful warriors, after feeling the aura of the Tickings, secretly said in surprise, I didn't expect that it was really the head of the Tigu sect. It seems that he should have come out of the royal city and accidentally passed by here, so he decided to recruit disciples temporarily. However, how could he be interested in a teenager from such a small place when he just accepted so many students from the academy? It costs 10,000 teals to visit. Isn't this too greedy? Why does the head of the Jun sect hate people pretending to be him? It's because he is afraid of being blackmailed. If he really took the money, it doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want, but he didn't do anything, but got a bad reputation for greed. How unfair it is. This is just a scam. What if someone cheats for sex or something, and finally a group of girls run to the Tigu sect with big bellies and let him be the scapegoat? Then he will be devastated. So those who pretend to be him must be severely punished no matter what. In the Huaman Lao, the heads of the various families gradually adapted to the strong aura. Some people said disdainfully, dare to burst out his cultivation in front of Master Jun. This kid is tired of living. Jun Changxiao almost vomited blood. My sword and martial arts double kings burst out, but they didn't realize that they were deceived. These people are really hopeless. Boy, Jun Changxiao said coldly, you are so brave to cheat outside with my name. The young man in white clothes who was stared at was scared to death. After all, he was a liar who had experienced many battles. He still showed a calm face and said, my friend, although your aura is good, it is not worth mentioning in front of me. Still pretending? Jun Changxiao sneered, believe it or not, I can kill you with one finger. Swish. At this moment, the head of the Ren family couldn't help it, strode out, and shouted angrily, you are such a shameless guy, I will meet you. Get out. Jun Changxiao punched him. Bang, the head of the Ren family, who had just rushed over, flew out, smashed the wall, and fell on the street. Everyone widened their eyes. The head of the Ren family is a top martial artist, but he was punched out by the other party. Jun Changxiao burst out with momentum, walked over step by step, and said, boy, if I'm not mistaken, this head of the Ren family should be in collusion with you. A strange look flashed in the eyes of the young man in white. Jun Changxiao got the answer he wanted from his eyes, and said, I was wondering just now, who would have nothing to do, and carry the birth date and date characters of the direct lineage with him. Swish. He raised his hand, and grabbed the other head of the family who was trembling next to him, and said, you should be one of the accomplices. That was the second one, to take out the birth date and date characters. Find a few people to play double acts, so that others will willingly hand over the money. This trick is quite clever. Although the arrested family head was terrified, he said stubbornly, boy, I'm from the Sun family in Guilin City. Jun Changxiao directly took off his face, and the original middle-aged man suddenly turned into a young man. Humans can mask. This guy's not the head of the Sun family. Swish. Jun Changxiao threw the young man who revealed his true face out and said, only a fool would be fooled by you. The faces of the heads of the families became extremely ugly. If he was really fooled, wouldn't he be scolding himself? The Red Flame Army of Xianyu Royal City is coming. The Red Flame Army of Xianyu Royal City is coming. At this time, shouts came from outside. Judging from this sound, it seems that there is an intention to tip off. Jun Changxiao's spiritual thoughts spread out, and he saw that the crowd on the street made way, and a large number of soldiers in red armor rushed in and quickly surrounded Huaman Lao. Why is she here? Who? Princess Hanglian. The woman wore red armor, and entered Huaman Lao with more than 10 soldiers. Oh my god. It seems that the one who just entered was Princess Hanglian. Why would she come to our small place? The warriors outside started to discuss. Finally, someone came to the conclusion that they must have known that Jun Changxiao was here, so they came to visit. As expected of the head of the Tigu sect, he could even alarm the princess of Wancheng. Boy. On the top of Huaman Lao, a family head sneered, you hit someone in the city, and Princess Hanglian is here, so just wait for a heavy punishment. Guilin City is managed by Xianyu Wancheng, so there are also regulations prohibiting fighting in the city. Stupid. Jun Changxiao said lightly. This is not a humiliation, this is definitely what he really thinks. The scam is about to be exposed, and they haven't realized that they have been deceived. These people are so stupid. At this moment, the young man in white behind was panicked. He knew better than anyone that he was a fake and wanted by the royal city. If he was seen by Princess Hanglian, he would be doomed. Oh, no. He covered his stomach and said with a grin, "My stomach hurts. I need to go to the toilet." Who? Just as he raised his foot to slip away, Jun Changxiao raised his hand, and his strong spiritual energy seemed to turn into chains, directly binding the young man in white. "Boy," he said coldly, "if you have a stomach ache, you will poop in your pants." Boom. 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 Princess Hanglian climbed up the stairs with the soldiers. When she saw everything clearly inside, she was surprised and said, "Master Jun, why are you here?" She looked in the direction and saw Jun Changxiao and the young man in white. The heads of the various families mistakenly thought that they were talking to the young man in white. If Princess Hanglian hadn't been present, someone would have surely said, "You're the fool, you've been deceived." "My lord princess." A family head pointed at Jun Changxiao and said angrily, "Not only did this person impersonate Sect Master Jun, he also attacked and injured people in the city without authorization. Please punish him severely." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533. If I had known this, why would I have done it in the first place? There are many people in this world who claim to be smart, but in fact they are extremely stupid. The heads of the various families in Huamanla are typical. Jun Changxiao tore off the mask of the person who cheated him, but he still firmly believed that the young man in white was the head of the Jun clan. In fact, he was not necessarily stupid. It was just that his self-esteem was too strong, and he had a status. It was difficult for him to accept the fact that he was deceived, and he was more willing to believe that everything was true. However, reality was very cruel. When a family head pointed at Jun Changxiao and complained to Princess Hanglian, she walked over and bowed, saying, "Master Jun, this person is the liar who pretended to be you in the royal city. I brought people here today to bring him to justice." There was silence in Huamanlao. The family heads who had been kept in the dark, or insisted on being kept in the dark, were stunned. This time, they clearly saw that Princess Hanglian was talking to this young man, not to the head of the Jun clan as they thought. Swish. Jun Changxiao raised his hand, grabbed the white-clothed boy in the air, and directly pulled him over. He said in a cold voice, "It turns out that you are a habitual swindler." The legs of the captured boy trembled violently. It turned out that the person standing in front of him was really Jun Changxiao. It was ridiculous that he was pretending to be him in front of him. "Jun. Sect Master Jun," the white-clothed boy said in a trembling voice, "I have no intention of offending." Jun Changxiao waved his hand and tore off the human skin mask on his face. This person has a slightly sick face. Although he can't be said to be ugly, compared with our wise and martial god Sect Master Jun, there is definitely a world of difference. "Princess." Jun Changxiao grabbed the collar of the counterfeit and said lightly, "The head of this city thinks that I'm a counterfeit. Please give me a proof." In fact, there is no need to prove it again, because they are all awake. Although Princess Hanglian had only just arrived, she had already understood the situation from what the family head said, so she said, "This is Jun Changxiao, the leader of the Strongest Sect. His other identity is the honorary tutor of Shianyu Academy." Plop. The last line of defense collapsed, and the heads of the families collapsed directly on the ground. He was so stupid to take the real as fake and the fake as real. "Master Jun," a family head said tremblingly, "Zhang is blind and ignorant. I'm sorry for offending you just now. Please don't take it to heart." The others also apologized and thanked him in a hurry. Jun Changxiao said, "If I were a petty person, your heads would have been gone by now." Everyone's face turned pale, and a chill rose behind them. Indeed, if he really cared about it, he would definitely be dead now, and Princess Hanglian would never offend the leader of the Strongest Sect for her. Everyone was busy apologizing again, and their waists were almost bent to the ground. However, Jun Changxiao said calmly, I just released the power of the two kings of sword and martial arts, which consumed a lot of spiritual energy. You can do whatever you want. When three people walk together, there must be a teacher among them. This lie taught Jun Changxiao something, and he immediately put it into practice. The heads of various families were very cooperative, and took out a stack of silver bills, to let him recover the spiritual energy he had just consumed. It was quite a lot. A full 3 million taels. Damn. This is really profitable. It would be great to manage the Mao sect by myself, and make money directly. Master Jun. Princess Hanglian said apologetically, this person impersonated your name, and swindled people in the royal city. It was my dereliction of duty. The princess was so respectful to him. We are lucky to be alive now. Alas. Jun Chang smiled and sighed, I'm too famous now. As the saying goes, the more famous you are, the more trouble you will have. It is inevitable that you will be used to cheat and deceive others. System. Princess Hanglian said, I will punish this cheater severely. As she said that, she raised her hand and ordered the soldiers to take the young man in white from Sect Master Jun. The cheater's face turned pale. The laws of the royal city are very strict. If you cheat under Sect Master Jun, you will definitely be severely punished. You may spend your whole life in jail. If I had known this, I would not have done it in the first place. How many people know that doing illegal things will cost a heavy price, but how many people do not break the law knowingly? Princess. Jun Chang smiled and said, this person impersonated me, and his nature is extremely bad. I intend to punish him personally. This. Princess Hanglian was silent for a moment, and said, okay then. No. The young man in white wailed, Princess, please take me back to the royal city. I'm willing to accept any punishment. Being taken to the royal city, at least he can still be alive. If he falls into the hands of this fierce man who directly wiped out several evil sects, he will definitely die miserably. Princess Hanglian ignored it, and ordered people to arrest all his accomplices. The head of the Ren family who was beaten out before was also disguised, not the real head of the Ren family. Really? He was ambushed and locked up by them. Princess Hanglian will deal with this matter and make up for it, and the author will not explain it in detail. This group of scammers is really professional. They let two people pretend to be the heads of the families and cooperate to perform a double act to stage a drama of paying money to enter. The heads of the various families must not be willing to fall behind, so they were deceived. Princess, I plead guilty. I accept the punishment. Please be sure to. Jun Changxiao chopped the back of the white-clothed boy's head with his palm knife, and the boy fainted immediately. He said, since you knew you were afraid, why did you pretend to be me and cheat people outside? Outside Gilin City. Princess Hanglian personally escorted him to the city gate. Princess. Jun Changxiao said in a rather tangled way, someone is pretending to be me to cheat. Is there any way to prevent such things from happening? This is what I encountered. If there are other bold impersonators who haven't encountered it, won't my reputation continue to be ruined? Princess Hanglian said, I will issue a red decree within the jurisdiction of the royal city. Anyone who pretends to be the head of the Jun sect will be punished as a felony. This is the only way at present. Some people say that the portrait of the head of the Jun sect can be widely distributed. In fact, it doesn't work, because if someone really wants to impersonate, they can change their appearance according to the portrait and continue to cheat. Recruiting manual typists, earning 200 to 500 yuan a day. You can work with a mobile phone. Those who are interested. Aren't there scams like this every day? You think you are smart and won't be fooled, but maybe someone will be fooled. Fighting crime is urgent. Similarly, the masses also need to raise their own vigilance to prevent being deceived. Jun Chang smiled and got back to the point. Princess, are you really not going to join Mighty Gus Heng's Heng sect? Woman, I'll give you another chance. Princess Hanglian smiled politely and said, my father is still in seclusion. To join your sect, I have to wait for him to come out of seclusion and agree. The princess is really a filial daughter. Jun Chang smiled and said, Jun Ma will take his leave first. As he said that, he lifted up the young man in white and left with Liu Wanshi until the back figure gradually disappeared on the official road. Princess Hanglian retracted her bright eyes and murmured helplessly, I also want to join the Tigu sect, but Xianyu Royal City also needs someone to take care of it. Chapter 534 Returning to Tigu sect, the disciples burst into tears. Guilin City exploded. The warriors in the city were arguing. It turned out that the sect master Jun, who had previously recruited disciples in Hua Manlao, was an imposter, and the young man who spent 10,000 taels to enter was the real sect master Jun. It was a bit confusing and a bit convoluted. Many warriors analyzed for most of the day before they sorted things out. I said, Sect Master Jun couldn't even recruit students from Xianyu Academy. How could he come to our Guilin City to recruit disciples? Why didn't you say it at the beginning? I said it. Can you believe it? TSK, hindsight. The heads of the families have lost face this time. While everyone felt sorry for the heads of the families in Guilin City, they also mourned for the imposter. Sect Master Jun is a fierce man. You pretended to be him and were caught by him. The ending must be very tragic. Master Jun. In the wild, the young man in white was tied up with vines and hung upside down on a tree. His face was flushed and he said, I was wrong. I will never dare to do it again. Please spare my life. Jun Changxiao ignored him and counted his space ring. There was a lot of money. More than 6 million taels. There was also a yellow powder that exuded a strong aura. I think it was a small prop to pretend to be the aura of the two kings of sword and martial arts. Jun Changxiao saw another diary called Cheating Record. He opened a page at random, and it recorded the record of every cheating by the young man in white. Counting from the date, it has been 10 years. The first time he cheated was when he was 8 years old. He cheated a little girl for her first kiss with candy beans, and was chased 10 miles by her parents with sticks. The second time he cheated. The third time he cheated. Until he turned to the last page, the total number of cheats was 2019 times. Closing the cheating record, Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched and said, boy, you are either cheating or on the way to cheat every day. He has cheated more than 2000 times in 10 years. He is definitely a perseverant liar. Jun, the head. The young man in white said with a crying voice, I have a 180-year-old mother above me and a group of hungry brothers and sisters below me. Please be generous and spare my life. Head. Liu Wan, she said, is what he said true? Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, this kid doesn't tell the truth. Don't be fooled by him easily. The young man in white howled in grief. Head. Jun, although I have cheated countless times in the world, this time it's true, and I definitely didn't cheat you. Really? Jun Changxiao walked over and punched him without saying a word. Bang, wow. The young man in white spurted blood. The head of Jun had a good grasp of his strength, which caused him pain without hurting his life. Master Jun. I was wrong. Bang, bang, bang. Jun Changxiao started to torture him. After a while, the young man in white was tortured so badly that his face was bruised and swollen, and he fainted from the pain. That's it? Jun Changxiao shook his head, threw him on the back of the Hurricane Wolf King, and said, Doo-doo, let's continue on our way. A few hours later, the young man in white woke up, and his bones seemed to be falling apart. Awake. Jun Changxiao said, then continue to torture him. Bang, bang, bang. After a while, the young man in white was tortured and fainted again. After 2 days of walking, he was tortured almost every once in a while, and it was better to die than to live. Jun Changxiao didn't want this man's life. He tortured him all the way and finally tortured him to the Iron Bone Sect. He dared to impersonate his name and cheat outside. It would be a pity to kill him with one knife, so he had to torture him slowly. When sect leader Jun returned to Tigu sect, Xianyu Royal City issued a decree that anyone who pretended to be the sect leader of Tigu sect would be severely punished. To make an example of others, the imposters who were imprisoned were severely punished in public, and those with serious natures had their cultivation directly abolished. The sect leader and Doo-doo are back. Suzaomo's loud voice rang out in the outer courtyard, and the faces of the disciples who were practicing showed ecstasy. They were not thinking about the sect leader, but Liu Wanshi. Because during the days when he was away, eating the food cooked by the second senior brother was like eating bran. Li Qingyang was also very excited. Now that the little junior sister is back, he finally doesn't cook anymore. The senior brothers have lost weight. Liu Wanshi looked at everyone with heartache, her eyes moist. Suzaomo, Li Fei and others also had tears in their eyes, and almost hugged each other and cried loudly. What are you crying for? Jun Chang said with a smile. Dudu won the championship of the cooking competition, and I'm so happy. Junior sister is awesome. Junior sister is awesome. Suzaomo and others shouted. Bang. The magic speakers were turned on and sang. The spring breeze of reform is blowing everywhere. Kidaling, Kidan Kiang. In the martial arts arena, thousands of disciples danced happily under the guidance of the king of poetry and the leader. It was still the original recipe, and it was still the original taste. Woo woo woo. In the cafeteria, when Suzaomo took a bite of the food made by Liu Wanshi, tears immediately flowed down her face. Li Fei and others also cried. Second brother. Suzaomo put her arm around Shinki's shoulder and cried. You don't mind. We definitely don't dislike the food you cook. Woo woo woo. After eating the food made by Liu Wanshi, the disciples of the Tigu sect were rejuvenated and walked out of the cafeteria in high spirits. However, they soon surrounded the young man in white. Boy. Suzaomo came over and grinned. You are so brave to pretend to be the leader. Li Fei. He shouted at the top of his voice. Happy football is waiting for you. Okay. Swish. Li Fei retreated 100 meters away and placed the happy football under his feet. Although the young man in white didn't know what it was, a sense of danger surged in his heart, so he said in fear, You, what are you going to do? Bang. Li Fei kicked the ball with a big kick, and the ball flew over in an arc, hitting him in the face with great accuracy. This kick was very particular, because the happy football hit the young man in white in the face, and bounced back perfectly. Bang. Li Fei kicked again, and the happy football burst out. Bang, bang, bang. In front of the goal, the young man in white was tied to a chair with his hands tied to his waist, and the happy ball dragged an arc, hitting his face again and again, and rebounding again and again. The scene was horrible. If the Chinese football team had a footwork like Li Fei, why would they worry about not making it out of Asia, or into the World Cup? Master. Just as he sat in the hall, Li Qingyang came to report, the inner courtyard has been renovated. How many people can it accommodate? Jun Chang smiled. Li Qingyang said, after the disciples' renovation and expansion, it can now accommodate 20,000 people. 20,000 people. Jun Chang smiled and murmured, it's enough for the time being. By the way, he said, soon, a group of students will join the sect. You will be responsible for arranging them. Students? Li Qingyang was a little puzzled, but he said, yes. In the afternoon, Chu Ziunan, Hu Oling and others rushed to the Tigu sect. When they just walked into the outer courtyard, before they had time to appreciate the sect's architecture, they saw Li Fei still kicking a happy football, still hitting the white-clothed boy's face again and again. Bang, bang, one kick, two kicks, each kick was powerful. Hu Oling and others saw their mouths twitching violently, and a chill rose from their backs. What's going on? Could it be that they were punishing the disciples who had violated the rules? Thinking of how violent Jun Changxiao had been in the academy before, they immediately realized that this sect must be full of sadists. Dad, Mom, I feel like I have entered a dangerous place. Chapter 535. Find the weakest fellow disciple to learn from. Because the headmaster had given instructions in advance, Li Qingyang handled the admission procedures for 39 students. Teacher Jun. Bang. Jun Changxiao punched Hu Oling on the forehead and said, from today on, you have to call me headmaster. Yes. Hu Oling, with a big bump on his head, said, headmaster. Qingyang. Jun Changxiao said, these new disciples will be arranged by you. Yes. Li Qingyang brought a group of junior brothers to the newly renovated inner courtyard, allocated rooms and school uniforms for them, and instructed, gather at the martial arts arena early tomorrow morning. Thank you, senior brother. Hu Oling grinned. After Li Qingyang left, these students from the academy were shocked and talked about it. The Iron Bone school disciples we met on the road all had such a strong aura. They must be stronger than senior sister Liu. Especially in the outer courtyard, the young man who was punishing the disciples must be a high-grade martial arts master. These young men with extraordinary qualifications thought that they could compete with the most ordinary disciples when they came to the Iron Bone school, but they realized that they were not even in the mainstream. TSK. Chu Ziunan said disdainfully, I just don't believe that there is no mediocre person in the Tigu sect. Then he strode towards the outer courtyard. Young Master Chu, what are you going to do? To find a fellow disciple to spar with? Everyone's mouth twitched. Young Master Chu. At this moment, Huoling exclaimed, be careful. Chu Ziunan was stunned. Bang, the happy football shot from the outer courtyard and hit him hard in the face, and the whole person suddenly sank into the wall. Hiss. Everyone gasped. But, damn. In the corner of the outer courtyard, Chu Ziunan covered his swollen face and said angrily, you actually sneak attacked me. It's really despicable. Young Master Chu. Huoling whispered, the disciples of the Tigu sect are too strong. You must not go to spar with them. Nonsense. Of course I'm not that stupid. If you want to challenge, you have to challenge the weakest in the sect. HMM. At this moment, Chu Ziunan saw a disciple standing at the door and said proudly, this kid should be the gatekeeper disciple. I can try my hand on him first. Then he stood up and walked over. The sect created by the 7 profound saints is indeed extraordinary. In a few days, I should be able to reach the peak of martial arts. He thought to himself. This martial arts practitioner from the upper world is really talented. After falling to level 0 many times, he can still reach such a level. Even Ni Xingchen at his peak is not worth mentioning in front of him. As a person who has experienced it, he knows that improving too fast will arouse suspicion and eventually bring trouble to himself, so he always relies on the hidden cultivation technique to suppress his realm. His current surface cultivation is a 6th grade martial arts master. He didn't hide it all, but he couldn't be too low-key, otherwise the head of the sect would think he was a loser. When mentioning the hidden cultivation technique that suppresses cultivation, he has the urge to cry. He practiced so many martial arts in the higher planes, but he couldn't practice them all when he came to the Xinjiang continent. Only this martial arts can be used, and it's used to hide his cultivation. Hey. He sighed. Hey. Suddenly, a voice came from his ear. Gatekeeper, how about we have a sparring match? Gatekeeper. He was startled. His face suddenly darkened. Junior brother. He turned his head and said, remember, I'm the last disciple, not the gatekeeper disciple. Last disciple. No wonder he closed the door when we came in. Haha. Chu Ziunan couldn't help but cover the pillar and laughed out loud. So this is the last disciple. He is laughing at me? A new junior brother is laughing at me? This is intolerable. He rushed up, grabbed Chu Ziunan's collar with his big hand, threw him over his shoulder, then rode on him, waving his fists, and beat him up like crazy. Boom. Boom. Every punch hit the flesh, every move was fierce. Huoling and others standing in the distance opened their mouths in shock. It turns out that in the Tigu sect, even a disciple who is responsible for closing the sect is so powerful. Jun Changxiao walked out of the hall, looking at who was committing violence, and murmured, the aura exuded by this guy seems to be a bit strong. There are more disciples now, and he can't pay attention to them all the time, so he doesn't know much about the martial arts of many disciples. Master. Li Qinggang said, junior brother, he is now a 6th grade martial artist. Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, improved so fast? Although the martial arts resources and equipment of his own sect are powerful, it is incredible that someone who has lost his memory several times in succession can break through to such a level. The system said, maybe this disciple of the host has cultivated some martial arts above the divine level like Yu Xingchen. It's possible. Jun Changxiao put on glare sunglasses, locked on and turned on the analysis function. Cultivation, 9th grade martial artist. Qualification, super divine spiritual root. Strength, 130,000 pounds. Looking at the spiritual roots displayed by the qualifications, Sect Master Jun was surprised and said, is there a spiritual root higher than the divine grade? The system said, the highest level of spiritual roots in the Xinjiang continent is a divine grade spiritual root. What does super divine grade mean? Perhaps, he is not from this world like the host. Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, is he also a traverser? The system said, this kind of super divine grade qualification can only be found in higher planes. He may come from the upper realm. Jun Changxiao was silent. After coming to the Xingqiu continent for so long, he has understood that this is just one of the many planes. In the vast universe, there are many higher planes, which are often called the upper realm by the world. Thanks to the main task given by the system, he became the strongest sect in the Xingqiu continent. If he became the strongest sect in the entire universe, he would definitely give up directly and wait for the death of 100 years to come. No. Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, the aura he exudes is that of a 6th grade martial artist, but how come the realm he analyzed is a 9th grade martial artist? He should use some kind of mental method to hide his cultivation. The system said. Jun Chang smiled and said, it can escape my spiritual thoughts. If it is a mental method, it is amazing. Although the sect has become famous, it will eventually arouse suspicion from others. If I can let myself and my disciples learn this mental method, it will not be too shocking. Rising in a short period of time, there will definitely be doubts from big forces. Now that I haven't encountered any trouble, it is because I'm not in the eyes of others. As my reputation grows, I will definitely become the focus of attention. It is definitely beneficial for the disciples of the sect to suppress their cultivation to an understandable level. In front of the gate, Chu Xiunan, who was looking for the weakest person to spar with, was beaten black and blue, and was beaten to the point of despair. It's what he deserves. Why did he find He Wudi? Although his cultivation is not the highest in the sect, his qualifications are definitely the strongest. Even if his cultivation is lowered by 1 level, he can still beat this arrogant young man from a noble family to the point of not knowing where to go. Invincible. Sect leader Jun, who was standing in front of the hall, waved at him with a smile on his face and said, come here. The smile was strange, and He Wudi immediately felt an ominous sign in his heart. Chapter 536, Hermitage. Master. He Wudi walked into the hall and said, do you have any instructions? Because he always suspected that the Tegu sect was created by the 7 mysterious saints, he also respected this master. Wudi. Jun Chang smiled and said, are you happy practicing in the sect recently? The more he said this, the more uneasy He Wudi felt. Master. The disciple is very happy and satisfied. As long as you are happy and satisfied. Jun Chang smiled even more. He Wudi collapsed. Master, can we talk? If you have something to say. Such a sinister smile is really a bit scary. Jun Chang smiled and said, Wudi, when I saw you for the first time, I determined that you are a talented person, so I accepted you as my last disciple. He Wudi almost vomited blood. Only your last disciple is a real last disciple. Master. He Wudi said with a bitter face, just say what you want to say. If you keep doing this, my heart can't stand it. That's great. Jun Changxiao stood up and walked down, saying, Wudi, do you think that mighty Strongest Sect should exist in the mortal world? It shouldn't. He Wudi said. There are so many martial arts resources, and so many training facilities, even the sects in the upper realm may not have them. But, Jun Changxiao said very quickly, it just exists. Why is that? How do I know? He Wudi said, my disciple is stupid. Please tell me clearly, master. Jun Changxiao patted him on the shoulder and said in a deep tone, you are a smart man. You should be able to guess it. He Wudi was stunned. Could it be that the master is hinting to me that the sect was created by the 7 mysterious saints, so the Tegu sect should not exist in the mortal world, so it really exists? It must be so. After He Wudi forced himself to think, he said, disciple understands. Do you really understand? I really understand. Good. Jun Chang smiled and said, a sect that should not exist, exists in the mortal world. Does this count as destroying the balance of heaven and earth? This? He Wudi thought for a moment and said, yes. If he had not fallen to level 0, he would never have come to a low level plane, because a single move would cause the imbalance of heaven and earth, or even lead to destruction. The Iron Bone Sect was created by the 7 mysterious saints. It was definitely a superpower in the upper realm. Now it is relegated to the mortal plane, which is definitely against the law of nature. Wait. The head of the sect told me so much. Is he going to take the sect to the upper realm, to the plane that should belong to it? That's fine. With the development of such a force, when it returns to the peak, I will go to avenge my enemies and then find the person who stole my secret book. In order not to destroy the balance of heaven and earth, I think that my disciples should be more low-key. Jun Changxiao smiled. Master, what you said is absolutely right. He is very low-key now, otherwise he would not deliberately suppress his cultivation. But, Jun Changxiao sighed and said, you are like fireflies in the dark night. No matter how low-key you are, you can't cover up your brilliance. He said, Master, what you said is absolutely right. Invincible. Jun Changxiao patted his shoulder again and said, take out the martial arts, that you hide your cultivation, and share them with your fellow disciples, so that you can be truly low-key. Okay, wait. He suddenly woke up, and said in astonishment, Master, I didn't understand what you said. Don't pretend to be confused. Jun Changxiao said, do you think that, if you hide your cultivation, I can't see it? The corners of He-Wooda's mouth twitched. He said so much, just to deliberately trick his own martial arts? That's right. He was tricking your martial arts. Maybe the force of crossing the void was too strong. He-Wooda's cultivation was not only gone, but his IQ also dropped seriously. He was fooled by Master Jun in just a few words. What to do? I can only orally tell you the secret cultivation technique, and it is not an important martial art to improve my cultivation. Well, even if it is an important martial art, it doesn't matter if I hand it over. After all, in this low-level plane, I can't practice it at all. Jun Changxiao wrote it down and murmured, this kind of mental method is very different from the Xingyan continent in terms of running the meridians. Enlightenment. Half an hour later, Master Jun's cultivation was successful. When he ran it for the first time, his cultivation level suddenly dropped from the Martial King level to the Martial Sect level. The function of the hidden cultivation technique is only to hide one's cultivation level. It is considered as an auxiliary martial art, so it is not difficult to practice. You can print it into a book and let each disciple have one. As he said, Jun Changxiao found many disciples and asked them to make it overnight. The next day, one by one, the secret books of the hidden cultivation technique were distributed to the disciples for them to practice. When they have practiced successfully, they can suppress their own realm at will, and even the king of martial arts can hardly spy on their true cultivation level. That's it. No one would have thought that the martial arts from the upper world could be practiced by everyone in a mortal sect. As for He-Wooda, he was always thinking about the conversation with the headmaster in the hall before, and secretly said, he can spy on my true cultivation level. It's really not simple. 7 Mysterious Saint. Is this the person you appointed? The more He-Wooda forced his imagination, the more he respected Jun Changxiao. Chu Xunan, who was severely beaten, was completely honest. He couldn't even beat a closed disciple, so what qualifications did he have to be arrogant? However, the tragedy has just begun. Everyone knows that life in the Iron Bone School will be full of cruel torture at the beginning, especially the happy football. However, there are also things that shock them. That is, after taking the body shaping pill, the physical strength and power have improved. Junior brother. One day, after doing shameful morning exercises, Suzayama brought Chu Xunan and others to the training room and grinned. Today, let you experience what real happiness is. Bang, bang, RRR. Painful screams came from dozens of shaping rooms. 2 hours later, Chu Xunan, Hu Oling and others lay on the stairs like mud, with expressionless faces and a look of despair. Dad, Mom, I really want to go home. Joining the Iron Bone School must require some torture to adapt, and this group of Zhuangtang students is no exception. When they were full of energy on the second day, and then fed by Liu Wansh's delicious food, they immediately forgot all the previous tragedies, and completely liked the feeling of being a masochist. Master Li Luoqiu stood outside the main hall, watching the group of new disciples coming in and out of the training room, and said with a smile, they are quite happy. Yeah. Jun Changxiao leaned on the doorsill, folded his hands and smiled. It is my lifelong wish to create a happy sect. Li Luoqiu turned his head and smiled. The position that the master relies on is also often relied on by the eldest disciple. Jun Changxiao was stunned, subconsciously raised his head to look at the sky, and murmured, "She has been gone for a while. I wonder if she has reached Lasao in the northeast now." From Yangzhou in the southwest to Lasao in the northeast, it's a long way. Li Luoqiu said. Master. At this moment, Li Qingyang hurried over and said, "There are many students outside who claim to be from Xianyu Academy. They want to see the master and say they want to join the sect." Really? Jun Changxiao waved his sleeves and smiled. Go out and take a look. Chapter 537 I come to challenge the disciples of the Tegu sect. Hundreds of teenagers stood in front of the mountain gate. They were students of Xianyu Academy who graduated early and rushed to Qingyang County. They only wanted to join the Tegu sect and learn martial arts from Master Jun. Classmates. Master Jun stood in front of the gate and said loudly, "Once you join our Tegu sect, you will be a disciple of the Tegu sect for life. You must think carefully." System. Readers think that they are begging others to recruit disciples. Now someone takes the initiative to surrender, but instead puts on airs. This guy is really cheap. Teacher Jun. A student said, "We have considered it and are willing to be disciples of the Tegu sect for life. In this case, let's enter in order." Jun Chang smiled. He handed over the entry procedures to Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others, and returned to the study. Recruiting disciples is still a long way to go, and he certainly can't always do it himself. Name. Huang Chengquen. Name. Li Hei. Ding. Ding. When Master Jun just sat in the study, the number of disciples entering and the increasing contribution value rang out in an endless stream. Wonderful. Comfortable. Little dragon. Looking at the fire dragon sleeping in the nest, Jun Changxiao clasped his fingers together and murmured, "When will you wake up?" The little guy has been in hibernation since before the 300,000 troops of Zhejiang County attacked, and has not woken up to this day. Last time he woke up, he could completely beat the second-skinned martial king. This time, can he completely beat the martial emperor? Jun Changxiao was looking forward to it. Ding. Sect members. 5301/10,000. Point. Ding. Sect contribution value. 10,001/10,000. Point. Ding. Contribution value overflow. Please host. Is it full so soon? Jun Changxiao thought and opened the system mall. He did not browse the items, but chose the muscle shaping room and directly spent 2,000 contribution points to buy 100 muscle shaping rooms. With more and more disciples, basic equipment must also be purchased. The training room needs to be expanded. Jun Changxiao murmured, otherwise it will be difficult to set up so many shaping rooms. Dusk is coming. There were more than 600 students who came to join the sect. After recruiting all of them, the number of Tegu sect members increased from 5042 to 5662. This was just the beginning. In the next few days, students came to apply for admission. Students who can enter Xianyu Academy must have excellent qualifications, so Sect Master Jun will not refuse anyone and accept them all. Someone wants to spy on the secrets of the sect? Sure, I welcome him to come in. If he can take away some useful information, I will write my last name in reverse when I took over as Sect Master. 5 days later, students who graduated early came one after another. The number of Tegu sect members rose from more than 5,000 to 9,002. Sect Master. Jiangzi's mouth twitched and said, "Your group from Wangqing has almost emptied the students of Xianyu Academy, right?" Strictly speaking, it was really emptied. Some of the students who didn't come were mainly new students. After they practiced for a year or two, they would definitely join the Tegu sect. After the battle with Shengquan sect, Tegu sect gained enough prestige in Qingyang County and almost attracted all the young people with good qualifications. Now, in the entire southwest Yangzhou area, talented and qualified students are almost caught by him. No wonder. After learning about this, the officers of various sects will sigh that the rise of Tegu sect will be unstoppable. Gathering the talents of the entire state, the head of the sect himself also has extremely high martial arts attainments. This will definitely be terrifying when the disciples grow up. Just southwest Yangzhou? No. Jun Changxiao still wants to develop outward. His ultimate goal is to gather all the talents in the world in Tegu Sect and build the strongest sect that the world will worship. Nearly 4,000 students entered the sect and obtained 4,000 contribution points. Headmaster Jun did not refresh them all or buy more items, but invested all in infrastructure. After a few days, 200 molding rooms were bought alone. Counting the previous ones, they were all placed in a large house, and the picture presented was quite spectacular. No matter what kind of training a new disciple has gone through in the academy, or how good their foundation is, they all have to go through the process of being shaped. Therefore, in these few days, we often see many people lying on the ground with no desire to live. There are many disciples, so the consumption is also high. Jun Changxiao came to the medicine hall and had a cordial conversation with the members, asking them to focus more on growing medicinal herbs. At the same time, a purchasing hall was also established, and Lilu Okiu was temporarily appointed as the hall master, responsible for purchasing various medicinal herbs, seeds and other items in the city. Master, Wei Lao said, the medicine hall is short of manpower. Tomorrow morning exercises, you come to select in person. Jun Changxiao said. Okay. The next day, Wei Lao selected 100 more stable disciples from the new disciples to expand the scale of the medicine hall. Zhu Ringwei said, Master, my wolf rider hall will also expand. Although the wolf cubs are not yet grown up, they can be trained in advance. After they are equipped with mounts, they can go directly to the battlefield. Choose whatever you want. So, Zhu Ringwei selected 1,000 disciples, and the number of wolf riders broke through 2,000. Lilu Okiu naturally would not miss it, and selected dozens of clever disciples. We are still short of 1,000 disciples to be promoted from a sect to a clan. When the number of disciples was nearly 5,000, Sect Master Jun was not too anxious, but now that it is almost 10,000, he must be a little impatient. Sect Master Li Qingyang came to see him and said, there is a young man named Jing Wugao outside, saying that he wants to come to challenge my Tegu Sect disciples. Jun Changxiao was stunned, and then his mouth twitched and said, this guy really dares to come. Tegu Sect, martial arts arena. Jing Wugao stood proudly in a white robe. Although he was knocked away by Jun Changxiao's iron fist of love in the academy, he had already made up his mind to challenge the Tegu Sect. He didn't come here to show off, he just wanted to see that a little girl is so strong. How advanced are the other disciples' cultivation? The newly initiated disciples gathered together, all whispering and talking. They never expected that the senior who ranked 10th on the list of heroes would come to the sect to challenge. Awesome. Courageous. Jing Wugao bowed and said, Teacher Jun, your sect can be rated as the top 3, so your disciples must have something extraordinary. I came here today to learn from you. This guy wants to challenge us. Suzaomo and Li Fei grinned. The aura exuded by this person is at most a first or second grade martial arts master. He dares to challenge, which is commendable. No problem. Jun Chang smiled and said, the people standing below are minor disciples of the Tegu Sect. You can choose anyone. Looking at the 20 disciples, Jing Wugao said, it is impossible for students to fight with girls, so. He paused, pointed to one person and said, just spar with him. The corners of Suzaomo and Li Fei's mouths twitched. Because the opponent chosen by this guy is actually Yi Xingchen. Little brother, I hope you can leave the Tegu Sect with your self-respect intact. Chapter 538. It's not that you are weak, it's that they are too strong. 20 inner disciples. Lu Kai and Qian as a flying temporarily. Jing Wugao didn't choose anyone but Yi Xingchen. This made our Yi Emperor very angry. Did he think that I was the weakest one among them? No. Quite the opposite. Jing Wugao, with the intuition of a genius, determined that Yi Xingchen's strength should be the highest among the crowd. Since you come to Tegu Sect, if you want to challenge, you have to challenge the strongest. Good man. Really ambitious and courageous. Are you sure? Yi Xingchen said in a deep voice. Jing Wugao said, sure. Okay. Yi Xingchen walked out. Junior brother. Suzaomo whispered, take it easy, don't beat him up. Yeah. Li Fei said, after all, he is a student of Xianyu Academy, you have to give him some face. Yi Xingchen stood in the center of the martial arts field and looked at Jing Wugao with an extremely contemptuous look. A guy who just entered the martial arts sect. He actually came to challenge me. Does he not know how to write the word abuse? Okay, I will teach him how to write stroke by stroke today. You can start now. Yi Xingchen said lightly. The voice was cold, like an emotionless killer. Please. Jing Wugao bowed. The next second, his pupils suddenly shrank, because Yi Xingchen's big hand had already pressed over. The speed was so fast that he didn't even have a chance to dodge. Boom. There was a loud noise from the martial arts field, and the ground seemed to shake with it, and gusts of wind were rolled up. Chu Xiunan, Hu Oling and others widened their eyes. In the field of vision, Jing Wugao fell to the ground, and Yi Xingchen pressed one hand on his neck, looking cold and said, "Boy, with this little strength, you dare to challenge me? Who gave you the courage? So strong." With just one move, the 10th senior on the list of heroes was pressed to the ground. Jing Wugao's face was ferocious, and there were turbulent waves in his heart. At that moment, Yi Xingchen in front of him seemed like a giant, and he was like a weak ant in front of him. Swish. Yi Xingchen suddenly raised his hand, swung Jing Wugao up like a child, and then threw him to the ground. Boom. 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 The floor vibrated again and again, and the sound made the heart of the newly initiated disciple beat wildly. This senior brother is a bit cruel. Especially Chu Xiunan. He was extremely lucky that he found the last disciple. If he had found him, he would have been abused even more miserably. Yi is really cruel and doesn't talk much. After a period of abuse, Jing Wugao lay on the martial arts field, foaming at the mouth, his whole body twitching violently, and even that handsome face was swollen like a pig's head. Suzaomo shook her head. Little brother, if you had chosen me, although you would inevitably be defeated, you would not be abused so miserably, but you chose junior brother Yi. 3 seconds of silence for you, master. Yi Xingchen turned around and said irritably, if there are such trash coming to challenge you in the future, please allow your disciples to continue practicing, so as not to waste time. Hu Lingren's mouth twitched. Jing Wugao, who ranked 10th, didn't even have the ability to fight back, and was tortured like this. Even if the senior who ranked first on the list of heroes came, he would definitely be in trouble. It is said that the royal city is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Now it seems that our Tigu sect is also a place where hidden dragons and crouching tigers are hidden. Dad, Mom. The child came to the right place. The abused Jing Wugao lay in the martial arts field for a long time. Suzaomo and others also dispersed and practiced on their own, leaving him alone, looking so lonely and miserable. This is my Tigu sect disciple. Jun Changxiao appeared in front of the field of vision, blocking all the sunlight, and lowered his head and said, have you seen it? See it. Jing Wugao said with difficulty, very strong. Although he was defeated and tortured extremely miserably, he did not feel discouraged, but instead showed excitement. Is he a masochist? No. Jing Wugao is a real martial artist. Although he was defeated, he also witnessed the real power, and his desire to become stronger will only become more determined. Some people will be devastated by setbacks, while others will become more courageous. Jing Wugao belongs to the latter, so he is a masochist. Jun Chang smiled and said, I will allow you to recuperate in the sect. After your injury is healed, you can continue to challenge. Thank you very much. Jing Wugao forced a smile on his face. Challenging just one person was not the purpose of this visit. He hoped to fight with different opponents. Even if he would still be beaten, he had to stand up with dignity. Martial arts. Never give up. Never give up. Although Yi Xingchen's attack was ruthless, he did not hurt the vital parts. 2 days later, Jing Wugao recovered. Please give me some advice. He bowed in the martial arts arena. TSK. Suzaomo sat on the fence and said, he continues to challenge just after his injury. Is this guy sick? Please. Shinki bowed. I won't go into details about the result of the battle, because Jing Wugao was still not a match for him, but fortunately he was not beaten. At least he was decent. However, he challenged Long Xiang again. Bang. When the sparring began, he was knocked out without taking a single punch, and fell on his back. Sorry. Long Xiang retracted his fist and said, you hit me a little too hard. Bang. Plop. Bang. Plop. Jing Wu Gao continued to challenge, but he lost 19 times out of 19 battles, all of which were quick and easy defeats, which was extremely tragic. Chu Xiunan, Hu Oling and others finally realized that the inner disciples were so awesome. Still fighting? Jun Chang laughed. Jing Wu Gao tried to stand up, holding his head high and saying, "Fight. Li Shangshan. Here. Fight him." Yes. The inner disciples are not enough, so the outer disciples will make up for it. Li Shangshan had just entered the martial arts sect, and his spiritual roots were not as good as Jing Wu Gao, but he could still beat him without any chance to fight back. Simazanda, Cui Bujian and other outer disciples also responded to the challenge. Jing Wu Gao fell down again and again, and was beaten very badly. The most tragic thing is that, even though he was a peak martial artist, he was defeated in the end due to the gap in realm. Plop. Dragging his embarrassed body, Jing Wu Gao slumped weakly on the steps outside the gate. His eyes, which were originally full of fighting spirit, had become dim. There is a limit to how strong a person's heart can be. Jing Wu Gao clenched his fists and said painfully, "Am I really that weak?" "It's not that you are weak." Jun Changxiao came over, sat in front of him, took a puff of his cigar, and said while blowing smoke rings, "They are too strong. Even if the disciples of the Tegu school have the most mediocre qualifications, with the assistance of various resources and equipment, they are almost trained to become the King Khan Calabash brothers. How can the genius of Xianyu Academy win?" "Yes." Jing Wu Gao lowered his head and said, "Teacher Jun's disciples are too strong. They are so strong that I have no courage to practice anymore." Jun Changxiao patted him on the shoulder and said, "You are weaker than them, because you lack the guidance of a famous teacher. Otherwise, with this unyielding perseverance, you can be far stronger than many people." Jing Wu Gao suddenly realized, Teacher Jun is telling me not to give up, not to give up. Chapter 539, Little Dragon Awakens, Second Evolution. Never give up, never give up. What I mean is, join the Tegu faction, and I will teach you well. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, "Never give up, never give up. It is certainly worth encouraging, but we must also judge the situation. For example, if there is a way to become stronger in front of you, will you choose to go?" "Boy, I said it so directly, you should understand it, right?" "No." Jing Wu Gao raised his head and said with a firm look, "I will try my best to find a path of my own." Bang! Jun Changxiao kicked him down, pointed at the mountain road, and said impatiently, get out quickly, I don't want to see you for a moment. Damn it. I'm not on the same channel with this guy at all, and I can't chat with him at all. Master Jun." Jing Wu Gao stood up from the ground and said, "I want to join the Tegu sect. Please take me in." Jun Changxiao, who was about to join the sect, turned his back to him and said lightly, "Aren't you going to take your own path?" "Yes." Jing Wu Gao said seriously, "I want to take my own path, but I believe that if I join the Tegu sect and be taught by Master Jun, I can find the path that belongs to me among thousands of paths. This guy's not stupid." King Guiyang. Jun Changxiao walked into the sect and said, "Bring the entry form." Jing Wu Gao, who ranked 10th on the list of heroes, joined the Tegu sect and became the 9003rd disciple. This person's qualifications and perseverance are very good. If he is carefully crafted in the sect, he will definitely show extremely strong strength. However, it is also the beginning of the tragedy of Li Qingyang and others, because they will face endless challenges from this junior brother in the future. Even if he is tortured to death every time, he will continue to fight after practicing, completely tireless, completely dogskin plaster. Early morning. Jun Changxiao stood in front of the hall with his hands behind his back. Nearly 10,000 disciples stood in a neat line, exuding an iron-willed aura. Originally, his sect had only one person, but it had developed to such a level in less than 2 years. There were also various talented geniuses, which made him feel proud. Wait. In this Xinjiang continent, I, Jun Changxiao, and my iron-willed sect will surely make countless strong men worship me. Stand at attention. He shouted, "Dance." The magic modified speakers were turned on, and the dynamic divine music sounded. After dancing shamelessly, the disciples dispersed and began to practice on their own. Jing Wu Gao, who had just joined, began to experience the shaping room. After experiencing the benefits, he brought his attributes to the extreme. Hey. After the practice of the gathering spirit formation, Jun Changxiao returned to the study and shook his head and said, "Why don't the other 9 geniuses of the academy come to challenge? Jingwu Gao is already very good, and the others must be excellent as well." The system said, "Having accepted so many talented disciples from the academy, the host should be content." That's right. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, "There are still 997 disciples missing. Why don't we go to Qingyang City and pick some captives to make up the number?" Aha. At this moment, the fire dragon curled up in the nest yawned, then slowly opened his eyes, revealing red pupils. The little guy's awake. Jun Changxiao was overjoyed. Among the several contracted beasts, he was most optimistic about the fire dragon. Now that it has awakened, there must be some huge changes. Swish. The little dragon opened his eyes, and his skin became redder, as if it was about to burn at any time. With the experience of the last time, Master Jun picked it up, and ran to the small martial arts field outside. As soon as he put it down, hot flames erupted, spreading at least 5 or 6 feet high. It was night at this moment, and the hot flames erupted, which could be seen clearly at the foot of the mountain. Oh no, it's on fire. It's on fire. The disciple who went out to relieve himself saw the flames in a daze and shouted at the top of his voice. The other disciples who were sleeping soundly were awakened and rushed out of the room in white shorts. Seeing the flames in front of them, they picked up wooden buckets to fetch water without saying a word. However, when they arrived at the scene, they found that the flames were spreading in the martial arts field and did not affect the houses and buildings. They were all confused. What is this? How come there are flames erupting out of nowhere? Is it a bonfire party? Those who were in a daze were all new disciples, while Suzuomo and others had already pulled the rope and put the school uniforms and bedding washed yesterday on it. The effect is very good. It was dried in a short while. The last time it woke up, the flames that erupted from the fire dragon's body only rose 2 or 3 meters. Now that it has woken up again, the flames released are more than 10 meters high, which means that the second evolution must be extraordinary. Sect leader Jun's eyes became hot. In his imagination, Xia Langlang's body should become bigger, almost the same size as the fire dragon beast. If he were placed in the sect as a guardian beast, he would definitely be very powerful. Hoo-hoo. The hot flames continued to erupt and only began to converge in the morning. Unfortunately, from the revealed body, there was not much change, and it was only a little smaller than before, like a foal. Jun Changxiao couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. However, thinking that the little guy had evolved after all, his strength must have greatly improved. This, Chu Xunan, Huoling and others opened their mouths. After the flames were restrained, a fierce beast similar to a lizard suddenly appeared, which caught them off guard. "Brother," Huoling said, "what is this?" From the appearance, the fire dragon has the characteristics of a snake and the limbs of a horse, so it is difficult for him to determine what kind of fierce beast it is. Suzuomo thought for a while and said, "It is the contracted beast of the head of the sect. You can think of it as a snake horse beast." Snake horse beast. Everyone looked confused. Wait, is this little guy the master's contracted beast? Impossible. The master is a rare sword and martial arts king in thousands of years. How could he have such a bad contracted beast? In the eyes of the new disciples, if Jun Changxiao has a contracted beast, it should be a tall and mighty lion and tiger beast, so that he can be worthy of the status of the master of a sect and a martial arts master. Roar. At this moment, Xia Langlang raised his head and roared, and a stream of energy visible to the naked eye quickly spread around like ripples on the water. The strong breath contained in the voice shocked everyone's face. This beast that looks like a foal must be very powerful. Master. Suddenly, a baby voice came from the mouth of the fire dragon. "I have evolved twice." The little guy actually spoke. Huoling, who knows a little about fierce beasts, exclaimed in disbelief, "Spirit beast. This is a spirit beast." The spirit in spirit beast represents spiritual wisdom. Fierce beasts that reach this level will not only open their wisdom, but also speak human language. This means that the fire dragon that evolved for the second time after waking up as a real spirit beast with strength comparable to that of Martial King. Chu Yunan and the others were completely stunned. The beast that they just looked down upon turned out to be a spirit beast. This slap in the face hurts a little. I will update 8 chapters in a row first and continue in the evening. Please recommend, please vote, please give me a reward, please do anything! Exclamation mark. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 542nd Combat Form. The second time the fire dragon slept was not long, but after evolving, it opened its spiritual intelligence and had the ability to speak, which was really incredible. Jun Changxiao thought it was normal. After all, the little guy was cultivated by himself at the cost of countless crystal cores. If there was no difference, it would be better to find a piece of tofu and kill it. It's just evolution. Is there a second combat form? Jun Changxiao asked. Yes. Xiao Lang said. Jun Changxiao was delighted and said, hurry up and show it to me. Master. The fire dragon said, once I use the combat form, I will fall into a long period of weakness. The little guy's voice was always babyish. If you don't look at the form, it feels like a 5 or 6 year old child. It's okay, it's okay. Jun Changxiao said, let me and my disciples open their eyes. Okay. Xiao Lang looked at the disciples around him and said with a proud look, you all step back to avoid being burned. Swish, swish. Li Qingyang, Suzaomo and others retreated quickly. They had seen Xiao Lang's first combat form, so they were more conscious. Chu Yunan and other new disciples were unaware of this. Although they also retreated, they only retreated a few steps away and thought to themselves, is it dangerous? Hoo. Suddenly, the little dragon standing in the center of the martial arts field erupted with flames again, rising 7 or 8 feet high in an instant. The scorching heat was obviously much stronger than before. Hiss. Chu Yunan and others sucked in the hot air and then hurriedly retreated a long way, fearing that they would be burned by the scorching temperature. My god. This flame temperature is too terrible. The disciples retreated a long way, and Jun Changxiao stood in place with his hands behind his back. He is not only a fire martial artist, but also the owner of a contracted beast. He allowed the scorching heat to rise, but he was still not disturbed by anything. The little guy's fire attribute is very strong. Very strong. So strong that it can rival Master Jun. And it is still rising. In just a moment, the stone slabs in the hottest area were steamed red, as if they were about to melt at any time. If it rises further, the nearby houses and buildings may not be able to withstand the high temperature and burn. Retreat. The Tegu sect disciples retreated again in shock. Jun Changxiao spread his spiritual energy and covered the martial arts field with an invisible barrier to prevent fire. The flames were isolated, and the scorching sensation suddenly weakened. The disciples who kept retreating stopped, and they were all shocked. Even if it was a spiritual beast, it shouldn't be that strong. After a while, the rising flames began to shrink. Master. Xiao Lang's childish voice came from the flames. This is my second combat form. Swish. A young boy's head poked out of the flames. He looked about 13 or 14 years old, and he was also handsome. Jun Changxiao smiled. The little guy's first form was just a human body, and his head still retained the characteristics of a fierce beast. Now that the second form has been activated, his head has also become a human, which is enough to show that he has truly achieved complete humanization. Step. At this moment, Xiao Lang took a step forward, and his whole body emerged from the flames. The expression on Master Jun's face suddenly stiffened. The disciples of the Tegu school standing in the distance also stared with their eyes wide open. What did they see? How could such an expression appear in the fastest time? They saw Xiao Lang take a handsome step forward, and there were clusters of flames all over his body. It was quite cool, but the body in the field of vision looked like a ferocious beast. His hairy chest looked like a chimpanzee, and his 2 pairs of arms were very thick, but his 5 fingers had slender nails. These were definitely not human hands, they were definitely claws. The most devastating thing was his 2 legs. Not only were they S-shaped, but they also had leopard-colored hair on them. These were not human legs, they were leopard legs. There was a cluster of flames burning between his crotch, which successfully avoided some embarrassment. There was a tail behind his buttocks, drooping on the ground, and there was also a cluster of flames burning at the end of the tail. "This is your second form?" Jun Changxiao said with his mouth open. "Not bad." Xiao Longlong, who had a boy's head, said proudly, "This is my second form, human dragon transformation." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched violently. In the first form, the dragon turned into a human, but the body turned into a human, but the head did not. In the second form, the human turned into a dragon, but the head turned into a human, but the body did not. Are you going to turn into a human or not? Oh my god. Is this a human or a beast? Chu Ziyunan and others stared at Xiao Longlong's second battle form with their eyes wide open. They could understand and accept that the spirit beast could speak, but it was absolutely shocking that it could turn into a human head. "Master." Xiao Longlong raised his eyebrows and said, "I want to fight." The fighting form was aroused, and the blood in the body seemed to burn, so it was eager to fight. "How about fighting with Elder Jiang?" Jun Chang smiled. No. Jiangzi, who was standing in the distance, said hurriedly, "I dare not fight with this little monster." If he couldn't even resist the first fighting form, he certainly wouldn't have the courage to compete with Xiao Longlong's second fighting form. "How about this?" Jun Chang smiled and said, "Two elders Ning and Jiang, the 3 of you fight with my contracted beast." This. The Ning brothers twitched their mouths. Although they couldn't be sure of Xiao Longlong's strength, they could tell from the breath that it must be very powerful. 3 martial kings fighting with it would definitely not be able to take advantage. "Master," Xiao Longlong said proudly, "the 3 of them are a little weak. I want to find a stronger opponent." "Ha. So arrogant. It is worthy of being my contracted beast." "In that case." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Let's have a fight, master and servant." "I agree." Jiangzi said hurriedly. Ning Duxing and Ning Duzu also expressed their opinions, saying, "The battle between the master and the contracted beast will surely become a legend for all ages." No. Xiao Longlong said, "The master can't beat me. Damn. This little guy's awesome." Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Longlong said, "Master, is there any martial emperor nearby? I want to fight with such a strong man." The corner of Master Jun's mouth twitched. "Even the sword and martial arts kings like me can't do it, so I'll just go and fight with the martial emperor to see what he can do." "Yes," Jun Changxiao said with a smile. "There are warriors at the level of martial emperor in Lingyuan sect of Zhenyang County." "Okay," Xiao Longlong said, "I'll go and challenge you." Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, "How long will your second form last?" "1 hour. Then don't go. The road from here to Gyuan sect is extremely long. Even if you ride the Hurricane Wolf King, it will take 3 to 5 hours. Swish. Xiao Longlong appeared in front of Jun Changxiao, waved his big hand, and picked him up directly. His legs, like a leopard, stared on the ground, and he immediately flew up like an arrow. In an instant, the whole audience was silent when they saw the head of the sect being held by his contracted beast, turning into a stream of light and disappearing in the vast sky. Everyone exclaimed for a long time, "It can fly. PS. Please vote!" Exclamation mark. Chapter 541 The Drunk Middle-Aged Man in Blue Robe. Some people think that they are tired of seeing Jun Changxiao pretending to be awesome and getting slapped in the face all the time. Can they change the way they do it? Here it comes. Today, Sect Master Jun was successfully slapped in the face by the contracted beast because he said that it would take 3 to 5 hours to reach Lingyuan sect by riding the Hurricane Wolf King, and Xiao Longlong wanted to show his master whether he could reach it faster by flying in a straight line at high speed. Whoosh, in the sky, a cluster of flames rushed, leaving a red stream of light wherever it passed. From the direction of Tigu Mountain, the sky seemed to present a long rainbow light, which only slowly dissipated after a while. Oh my god. The sect master's contracted beast can fly. Isn't it a low-level spirit beast, but a medium-level spirit beast comparable to the martial emperor? Jiangzi and the Ning brothers' mouths twitched. At that moment, they were extremely grateful that they didn't go to fight Zhao Langlong with 3 people. A flying spirit beast is definitely comparable to the martial emperor. Not to mention the 3 martial kings attacking together. Even if there are more, they will be completely defeated. After Zhao Langlong evolved, the Tegu sect was shocked. Now that he can fly in the activated form, the shock in his heart is beyond description. Chu Ziyunan and others who had doubted the contract beast of the leader were a little bit rude, and their faces were swollen to the sky. Swoosh, in the sky, Zhao Langlong's flames were fully opened, and it kept rushing forward, as if it was pushing a device. The black hair of the leader Jun, who was being held, was flying wildly, and his face was folded, completely losing the handsome and unrestrained appearance he should have. Who hasn't been embarrassed? Screenshots, photos and uploads are prohibited. Of course. Jun Changxiao didn't feel embarrassed now, but was extremely excited. After Zhao Langlong activated the second combat form, he had the power to fly. Could it be that he has reached the level of Wu Huang? The system said, yes. But the defensive barrier was open to block the sharp wind like a knife. Jun Changxiao was able to completely let go of his facial muscles and laugh. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. System. Master. Zhao Langlong said, my speed is okay. Yes. Super fast. According to Jun Changxiao's judgment, let alone going to Zhejiang County, even if it is going to the farther Xianyu King City, it will only take more than 10 minutes at most. Look. Is it a slap in the face? Jun Changxiao didn't think so. As long as the contracted beast can show strength beyond his imagination, then beat it hard. Using a whip or a candle is no problem. Whoosh. Zhao Langlong hugged Master Jun and turned into a stream of fiery red light and rushed away. The speed was so fast that they were far away from Tegu Mountain just by talking. What is that? My god, is it a meteor? How can a meteor fly straight in the sky? Many martial artists and people in Qingyang City looked up, their eyes full of shock. This situation has also been staged in other cities. Wherever the fiery red light passes, it will cause endless discussions. On this day, the fiery red light penetrated the sky, until a long time later, someone saw it through the historical records and wondered if it was the birth of a treasure. Iron Sect, an ancient sect with thousands of years of history. At this moment, many martial artists in different costumes are walking along the stairs towards the mountain gate. Their eyes are full of excitement. Today, Iron Sect is giving lectures to the public. This is an activity that has lasted for hundreds of years. Although the purpose is to show off, it can also benefit many martial artists, so it has gradually become a major event in Zhejiang County. So exciting. I didn't expect that the Grand Elder Yu Hangte would be the one giving lectures in Iron Sect this time. He is a martial emperor. Being able to listen to his understanding of martial arts will definitely benefit you for life. The martial artists walking on the stairs were getting more and more excited. I heard that County Magistrate Zuo is here too. Iron Sect's lectures benefit all living beings. The fact that the County Magistrate is here shows that they value him. Many heads of major families are here too. We are not only fortunate to listen to the lectures of Emperor Wu today, but also to see such prominent figures. We are really honored. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Don't get in my way. As everyone was discussing, an impatient voice came from behind. Many warriors looked back and saw a middle-aged man in a blue robe, about 30 or 40 years old, holding a wine gourd in his hand, staggering over, with a mouth full of alcohol. Someone actually dared to come up drunk. He was really brave. Did you hear me? The middle-aged man in a blue robe staggered over and said, I told you not to get in the way. Because they were in Iron Sect, although some people were unhappy, they didn't argue with drunk people, so they all chose to avoid them. That's right. The middle-aged man in blue robe climbed up step by step, raised his head, and drank a sip of wine, grinning. A good dog doesn't block the road. Damn it. Everyone glared at him. Plop. The middle-aged man in blue robe seemed to have drunk too much. He lay down on the stairs, then hugged the wine gourd, and squinted his eyes and said, I'm tired. I need to sleep for a while. Everyone's mouth twitched. This guy, isn't he afraid of rolling down? Hoo-hoo, the middle-aged man in blue robe really fell asleep, and even snored. Everyone shook their heads and continued to move forward. The gate of Lingyuan sect was open, and everyone rushed in after climbing up. The outer courtyard of this fourth-rate sect is very large, and the martial arts field is also paved with precious stone slabs. At this moment, tens of thousands of Lingyuan sect disciples were sitting cross-legged. There was a high platform facing the main hall. The great elder Yu Hante was sitting cross-legged, and the incense burner on the table next to him was emitting curling smoke. Fengxi and Ao Bone, extraordinary and otherworldly. The admiration in everyone's eyes became stronger and stronger, and then they found a place to sit down silently. About half an hour later, the huge martial arts arena gathered many foreign warriors. The number was as many as 70,000 or 80,000. Everyone. At this time, in the hall, a middle-aged man with a majestic appearance walked out and said loudly, "Welcome to Lingyuan sect, Zuo County Magistrate." Everyone exclaimed. Zuo Chaoquan smiled like the host. It is a blessing for Zhejiang County that the great elder of Gyuan sect is giving a lecture this time. You don't need to be polite. If you have any questions, you can raise them. Zuo County Magistrate. Suddenly, someone said, "I have a question." Swish. Everyone turned around and looked. At the gate, the drunken middle-aged man who was originally sleeping on the stairs put his hands on the door edge and posed in a sexy S shape. The corners of the mouths of the heroes twitched, asking questions before the lecture started. "It is true that drunk people are unreasonable. Is it you?" Zuo Chaoquan frowned. The middle-aged man in the blue robe took a sip of wine, wiped the wine stains from the corners of his mouth, and said with a smile, "After not seeing each other for many years, County Magistrate Zuo's cultivation has not improved much." This sentence almost made all the warriors fall. No matter they are acquaintances or semi-acquaintances, they all say politely when they meet, saying that their skills have improved after not seeing each other for many years. So why has it not improved for him? This is definitely not a compliment. It is an insult. This person must be familiar with the county magistrate, but not an acquaintance. He must be an enemy. The 10th update on December 31st, 2018. Yesterday I said there would be 10 updates today, but because I didn't include the date, some readers asked where the 10th update is. Where is the reputation? It made me laugh and cry, so I specially added the date today. PS. Jianghu Gaodan wishes everyone a happy New Year's Day. Continue to be handsome for a whole year next year. Chapter 542. Qingyang County Magistrate, Yun. Zuo Chaoquan sneered. "Brother Yun, your cultivation over the years doesn't seem to have improved." Although the county magistrate called that guy brother, no one could see any good feelings towards him. There was definitely no grudge between the two. "Hey." The middle-aged man in blue robe shook his head and said, "Martial arts are unfathomable. I'm dull and naturally won't achieve much. But," he paused, grinned, and showed a row of neat white teeth, and smiled, "it's okay to beat you." "Really?" Zuo Chaoquan's face darkened. The two were far apart, looking at each other, and the eye-to-eye confrontation had already begun. The atmosphere became serious. After a while, the two looked at each other with sore eyes, and they looked away one after another. "Brother Yun," Zuo Chaoquan said lightly, "do you have any problems that you need me to solve?" The middle-aged man in blue robe picked up his hair that hadn't been washed for a few days and said lightly, "Isn't it a bit unfair for you to send 300,000 troops to attack Qingyang County, which I manage?" "The Qingyang County he manages? Could it be?" Someone suddenly realized, this man is the governor of Qingyang County? Yes. The middle-aged man in the blue robe is Yunhe, the governor of Qingyang County. He came to Zhejiang County alone, and it is not difficult to hear from his words that he seems to want to seek justice for Qingyang County. He is also a man of character. If Ziguancan knew, he would definitely not think so, and would quickly send someone to carry him down the mountain. Why? Because the governor not only likes to drink, but is also a drunkard. As long as he is drunk, not to mention the governor of Zhejiang County, even the Emperor Wu would dare to point at his nose and say, "What are you looking at?" As the saying goes, alcohol makes cowards brave. Before drinking, he was from Xinjiang continent, and after drinking, Xinjiang continent was his. Survival of the fittest. Zuo Chaoquan said lightly, "Brother Yun should understand this truth, right? Don't talk nonsense. Yunhee burped and said, if you have the guts, fight me in public. Zuo Chaokwon frowned. Although he didn't want to fight, with so many people watching, he said coldly, in that case, it's better to obey than to be respectful. The martial arts arena, which was originally full of people, suddenly became empty, and disciples of Iron Sect and various warriors stood outside. The battle between county governors is very rare. Of course. Because they are all from Zenyang County, they must stand on Zuo Chaokwon's side and expect the county governor to beat that guy up. Yunhee, who was full of alcohol, walked up slowly. Zuo Chaokwon walked forward from another direction, smelled the alcohol in the air, pinched his nose subconsciously, and said to himself, as the lord of a county, it is difficult to achieve great things if you only know how to drink all day. In order to fulfill his ambitions, he strictly disciplined himself and did not drink a drop of alcohol. Putting aside the grudges with Qingyang County, this is definitely a person worth learning from. Zuo Chaokwon. Yunhee took another sip of wine and said, today, in front of the people of Zenyang County, I will let you know the consequences of bullying Qingyang County. Zuo Chaokwon said lightly, if it weren't for the Iron Bone Sect that showed up halfway, your 9th class county would have been taken down by me long ago. Ha ha ha. Yunhee laughed loudly and said, a small sect in Qingyang County wiped out your White Tiger Legion. Aren't you very angry? When Zuo Chaokwon mentioned this, he was furious. But he still suppressed it and said, brother Yun, can we start now? Okay. Before Yunhee finished speaking, the aura of the King of Martial Arts burst out, and he rushed over with a timid body. King of Martial Arts. Everyone exclaimed. A county governor of a 9th class county could break through to the King of Martial Arts, which was beyond their expectation. Zuo Chaokwon sneered, and the King of Martial Arts cultivation burst out. The strong power of his fists blasted directly into the void. Bang, bang. 2 explosions were heard. All he saw was the surging spiritual energy resonating with the space, quickly condensing into a huge fist and suddenly pressing towards the rushing Yunhee. Extreme intermediate level, shocking fist. Come on. Yunhee stopped and waved his long sleeves. The spiritual energy spread out, forming a barrier like a water curtain in front of him. Boom. The fist carrying a huge force directly smashed into the water curtain, and both sides died instantly. The 2 different spiritual energies were madly disturbing the outside and moving the space. Thump thump thump. Zuo Chaokwon took several steps back before he stabilized his body. When he looked up, he found that Yunhee was gone. Where is he? Snoring. Snoring sounded outside the martial arts arena. Zuo Chaokwon scanned with his spiritual thoughts and found that Yunhee was lying down at the moment, sleeping soundly with his 4 legs up in the air. Everyone. This guy was fighting, but he could actually lie down and sleep under the stage. What a super weirdo. Come, help me up. I can still drink. Yunhee, who was sleeping soundly, still talked drunkenly. Zuo Chaokwon's mouth twitched violently. I actually accepted the challenge of a drunkard. Is there something wrong with my brain? Someone. He shouted in a deep voice. Throw him out. County magistrate. A councillor said, we can capture this man. Maybe he will be used for other purposes in the future. Zuo Chaokwon said, before taking over Qingyang County, if you arbitrarily detain the head of a county without authorization, others will poke your back if it gets out. The councillor said no more. The county magistrate is a man who does big things, but sometimes he is a little restrained because he cares too much. Come, continue drinking. Several soldiers lifted Yunhee up, and he was still talking drunkenly. Is this guy sure he is not here to make fun of me? A farce ended. The disciples of Iron Sect and many warriors sat down one after another. Zuo Chaokwon walked into the hall and had a cordial conversation with the leader of Iron Sect. Yu Hante, who was sitting on the high platform, said loudly, I wasted some time just now. You can now ask me questions about martial arts. Senior Yu, I have some confusion about martial arts. Please give me some advice. A family head spoke first. You can talk about it. Yu Hante said, just like a martial arts master. This martial arts confusion has been going on for a long time. At this point, the family head's face suddenly showed a look of fear and said, it's over, it's over. Over? Everyone was stunned. Subconsciously, they looked in the direction where the family head looked up, only to see a stream of light dragging a rainbow of light flying at a high speed in the sky behind the hall. Yu Hante also noticed that a scorching force was spreading, so he spread his spiritual thoughts and discovered the red light that was coming rapidly. Not good. It's going to fall. Everyone, run. Everyone sitting in the martial arts arena fled in all directions like frightened rabbits. HMPH. Yu Hante sneered and raised his hand. The space suddenly twisted. A stream of spiritual energy visible to the naked eye formed and gathered to form a materialized barrier above the hall. Boom. At this moment, a red light like a meteor directly hit the barrier, smashing it hard, and then fell in the center of the martial arts field with a bang. Whoosh, the hot air wave swept in, sweeping away all the warriors who could not retreat in time. At the same time, because the landing force was too strong, the ground of the entire Lingyuan sect trembled violently, and the beams of the hall were creaking. Zuo Cheokwon and the leader of the Lingyuan sect, who were talking, all changed their faces. They released their spiritual thoughts together, covering the area where the power came from, and saw a ball of hot flames appear out of thin air on the martial arts field. The precious stone slabs were either shattered or steamed red. Two figures gradually emerged from the flames, and a voice was heard. The leader of the Strongest Sect, Jun Changxiao, has come to visit the Lingyuan sect. Please give me some advice. Chapter 543, Beat up all those who can be beaten. Jun Changxiao, the leader of the Strongest Sect, has come to visit Lingyuan sect and ask for your advice. This sentence was transmitted over the Lingyuan sect, and with a scorching airwave, it was extremely pretentious. The warriors who were swept away stood up with difficulty, their eyes widened. Jun Changxiao? Why is he here? And, he flew over. Could it be that the leader of the Strongest Sect has broken through to the martial emperor? Impossible. The recent news about him seems to have come from the royal city. His cultivation is the double king of sword and martial arts. How could he enter the martial emperor? Step. At this moment, Jun Changxiao stepped out of the flames in a chic manner, put his hands behind his back and vomited. Everyone. It was normal for the leader Jun to be a little dizzy for the first time flying so fast. Yu Hante's face was extremely ugly. The defensive barrier he had just condensed was directly broken, which brought him a great shock. Swish. Swish. Zuo Cheokwon and the leader of the Lingyuan sect walked out of the hall. Their faces became solemn. What they care about is not Jun Changxiao, but the burning flame behind him, because it exudes a heavy and majestic momentum. Yu Hante peeked into the momentum in the flame and thought to himself, could it be that this is the person who attacked me before? Humph. A dignified martial emperor, so despicable. Yawn. Woody, who was in the Tigu sect, sneezed and rubbed his nose and said, is someone saying bad things about me? Master Jun. The leader of Lingyuan sect said coldly, you came here uninvited. What do you have to teach me? Several martial kings of his own family died in his hands, and it must be that the enemies were particularly jealous when they met. Jun Changxiao, who gradually adapted to it, said, your sect went to my Qingyang county to challenge before, and it is not polite not to return the favor. Today, I'm here to learn from you. To put it bluntly, he came to make trouble. However, Master Jun was a little puzzled. Why are there so many people in Lingyuan sect? Could it be that they knew that he would come to make trouble today and prepared melon seeds and benches in advance to watch the excitement? Get out of the way. Everyone, get out of the way. At this moment, Yunhee, who was drunk, squeezed in from the crowd outside and grinned. You little brat, you're here just now. Huh. Jun Changxiao frowned and said, do we know each other? Little brat. Yunhee said, I'm the governor of Qingyang County. Didn't Ziguancan mention it to you? Governor? Jun Changxiao remembered the governor that Ziguancan had mentioned to him before, and when he looked at this guy's decorations and his white hair, he murmured, it really looks a bit like him. Like shit. It's true. Yunhee said. Wait. Wasn't this guy thrown out because he fell asleep? Why is he back again? Zuo Cheokwon. Yunhee said proudly, just now you and I had a tie. Now my Qingyang County sect will challenge your Zenyang County sect. Everyone's mouths twitched. In the situation just now, was it sure that it was a tie, instead of being knocked out by a punch and falling to the ground pretending to sleep? Zuo Chaoguan? Jun Chang laughed and said, so the governor of Zhejiang County is here too. I'm sorry, Master Jun. Zuo Chaoguan said in a deep voice, since you're here to challenge me, you should go through the main gate. Isn't it too rude to fly over like this? Although the flame was very strong, as the governor of a 6th class county, he naturally couldn't be weak. Don't talk about these useless things. Jun Chang laughed and said, hurry up and send someone who can fight. Xia Longlong's fighting form has a time limit, and he must smash the place and leave as soon as possible. Otherwise he will definitely not come back today. Sitting on it is like a charlatan. Jun Chang laughed and pointed at the martial emperor who had chased him before, and said lightly, just you. How dare you? Yu Hante shouted coldly. Swish. The flame suddenly rushed over, so fast that even a martial king like Zuo Chaoguan couldn't keep up with the rhythm. Boom. A loud noise came. I only saw that the flame had approached Yu Hante, and his thick arms stretched out and hit the other's chest directly. Old man. Xia Longlong's babyish voice came, speak politely, or I will beat you. Yu Hante's eyes widened, and he staggered backwards until he fell from the high platform, and then he spurted out a mouthful of blood. Everyone was stunned. This is the Grand Elder of Iron Sect, a genuine martial emperor, and he was vomiting blood by a punch. Jun Changxiao was also a little confused. He knew that the little guy was very strong when he activated the second combat form, but he didn't expect it to be so strong. With such an awesome contracted beast, can't he walk sideways in Yangzhou, southwest? Swish. At this moment, Xia Longlong, who was in the flames, moved again, and appeared in front of Yu Hante, as if he had teleported in an instant. The sky was full of flames, and instantly turned into balls of fire fists. Bang, bang, bang. The fists of fire burst out, and each punch hit the flesh. Yu Hante, who was a Fengs and AO, didn't even have time to open the protective barrier before he was bombarded. Bang, the last punch was thrown, and the Grand Elder of Iron Sect flew out like a cannonball, but with a duong sound, he passed through the hall and directly hit the mountain in the backyard. The distance from the martial arts field to the back mountain is at least 10 miles away. Plop. Yu Hante fell to the ground and fainted on the spot. It was tragic that a dignified martial emperor fainted twice in a short period of time. Hiss. Everyone gasped. Who on earth was the person in the flames? How could he so easily trample a martial emperor? Master. Xia Longlong's voice came out. That guy is too weak. Is there anyone stronger? Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. He thought that the battle between Xia Longlong and the martial emperor would be earth-shattering, but in the end, he was solved so easily. Zuo Chaoguan and the leader of Iron Sect both widened their eyes. This Iron Sect actually has such a strong man. Master. Xia Longlong said, I haven't fought enough. Jun Changxiao looked at Zuo Chaoguan and the leader of Iron Sect and said, then beat up all those who can fight. Okay. Xia Longlong dragged the flames and rushed over. Boom. Boom. Zuo Chaoguan and the leader of Iron Sect penetrated the wall of the hall like a cannonball, hit the mountain behind the mountain heavily, and then fainted next to Yu Hante. This is just the beginning. All the elders in Iron Sect who have the cultivation level of Wu Wan could not escape Xia Longlong's clutches, and they all crashed into the mountain in a gorgeous posture and fainted. A moment later, the family of the Iron Sect's senior officials lay neatly on the ground. What's even more tragic is the hall. At this moment, the outer wall is devastated, with various herringbone shapes. No one can fight. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, it's boring, go home. Swish. Xia Longlong picked up his master, kicked his right foot suddenly, and turned into a stream of fiery red light, and flew into the sky again. It can be said that they came and went in a hurry. The warriors outside the martial arts arena were stunned. They came to Iron Sect to listen to the class this time, but before they could benefit from it, the great elder who gave the lecture was beaten unconscious. See? At this moment, Yun he shouted, this is the end of bullying Mike in Guyang County. Swish. 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 At this moment, a group of Zhejiang County martial arts masters stationed at the foot of the mountain flew over and quickly surrounded him. TSK. Yun he smiled coldly, and the key flowed to Danshan, and shouted loudly, stinky boy, save me. Chapter 544. From today on, you are the governor of Qingyang County. I'm telling you, if I wasn't afraid of making things too ugly, I would definitely be able to take care of all those martial kings who surrounded me. Yun He sat on a stone in the mountains with a big bump on his head. The smell of alcohol on his body floated in the air, which made Jun Changxiao question, "Are you really the governor of Qingyang County?" He had already left, but later thought of this person, and returned again to save him from being beaten. "Nonsense." Yun He said, "Of course I'm the governor of Qingyang County." As he said that, he took out a waist badge with a gold border from the space ring, on which were engraved the 5 words Qingyang County Governor. "Okay," Jun Changxiao said, "my governor is a weirdo. Stinky boy." Yun He took another sip of wine and grinned. "Qingyang County can have a sect with unlimited potential like yours, and it is also because of my good leadership. Not to mention the group of martial kings who just beat him up." Even Jun Changxiao felt the urge to take action. "Hey." Yun He pointed to the flames that were always burning in the distance and whispered, "Who is in there?" How could he trample on a martial emperor? Xiao Langlang's fighting form was a bit scary, so when he came, Sect Master Jun specifically told him to use flames to cover up and not to reveal his appearance. "The sect still has things waiting for me to deal with, so I'll take my leave first." Jun Changxiao was too lazy to explain to him, and stood up to leave. "Wait a minute." Yun He stood up, patted him on the shoulder, and said seriously, "I like to travel around. I'll ask you to take care of Qingyang County in the future." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. This guy's really a hands-off boss, and he does it thoroughly. "When can I be so free and easy?" "Of course." Yun He said, "I won't treat you unfairly." As he said that, he threw a waist badge and said, "From today on, you are the governor of Qingyang County." Jun Changxiao was stunned. However, when he saw the words Deputy County Magistrate of Qingyang County written on the waist badge, his mouth twitched and he said, "Isn't this too casual, boy?" Yun He stood up and left, waving his hand and saying, "I'm leaving first." "Psycho." Jun Changxiao muttered, then summoned Xiao Langlang, turned into a ball of fire, and disappeared into the sky. Yun He drank a sip of wine, looked at the sky with a dazed look, and murmured, "Little guy, whether Qingyang County can become stronger depends on your Iron Bone School." Plop, he fell to the ground and fell asleep. This time he was really drunk. He slept for several hours before waking up, then scratched his head, and said in a daze, "Why am I sleeping here? Hey, I'm drunk again. Forget it. For the sake of being county magistrates, I won't bother Zuo Chaoquan." How come there is one less deputy county magistrate's waist badge? You didn't get drunk and gave it to someone else. Let's talk about Jun Changxiao again. Carried by Xiao Langlang, he soon returned to the sect. The disciples who were practicing in the martial arts arena came over to ask about the situation. When they learned that the master's contracted beast had abused the Lingyuan sect's martial emperor and many high-ranking martial kings, their eyes widened. "My god. How awesome is this? It's a pity that I didn't see it with my own eyes." "Master." Xiao Langlang returned to his previous form, then collapsed on the ground, and said weakly, "I need to rest for a while." On the day when Lingyuan sect opened the forum to give lectures, Jun Changxiao flew over and abused the Grand Elder and the county magistrate. The news spread immediately in Yangzhou in the southwest. "What?" The chief of the demonic sect branch who received the information stood up and said in surprise, "Can that guy defeat the martial emperor?" "Report to the chief." The subordinate said, "It was not Jun Changxiao who did it, but a mysterious person covered in flames." The Lingyuan sect's Grand Elder was abused and had no power to fight back. "So strong?" The chief frowned and said, "Could it be that this small Tegu sect has a stronger existence?" The branch of the god-killing temple also received the news. The chief was also shocked and guessed it was the martial emperor who did it. "He can easily defeat you, Hante. His quality must be very high." The news of the smashing of the Lingyuan sect spread more and more widely, and the Xianyu royal city also received the news. Sita Heoan and Li Xiangxing were also shocked for a while after they learned about it. Of course, many people are discussing who the mysterious person covered in flames is. This will be destined to be an unsolved mystery. After receiving the news, Princess Hanglian fell into a brief contemplation and said to herself, it should be a fire-type strongman. The news about Tegu sect continued to spread in Yangzhou, southwest China. Many warriors also realized that this small sect not only had the two kings of sword and martial arts, but also the powerful martial emperor. For a time, many young men and women with dreams flocked to Qingyang County from all over the world just to join this top 3 sect with extraordinary potential. Line up, come one by one. Outside the gate of Tegu sect, Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others were maintaining order. Ning Duxing and Ning Duzu were sitting at the table with a large stack of entry forms next to them. The two now not only had to teach disciples, but also had the additional job of recruiting disciples. Hello, two elders. A young man came over. Ning Duxing said, name, gender, age, spiritual roots, cultivation. My name is Yang Lan, male, 19 years old, low-grade spiritual roots. The young man was introducing himself when he was interrupted by Ning Duxing. The spiritual roots are too low and do not meet the entry requirements. Jun Changxiao asked the two of them to recruit disciples, and the condition given was that they must have at least medium-grade spiritual roots, and low-grade ones did not need to be considered. Elder Yang Lan said, my martial arts spiritual root is poor, but my formation spiritual root is high. Oh. Ning Duxing said, you know formation? Yang Lan handed over a token and said, this can prove it. The token was engraved with very complicated lines. At first glance, it looked like some kind of formation, and it was written with 4 characters in the style of first-class formation apprentice. Formation also has levels. This first-class formation apprentice is just getting started. After Ning Duxing and Ning Duzu exchanged glances, they raised their pens to fill in the entry form, and then directly stamped the seal and said, go in, someone will help you. Yang Lan bowed and said, thank you, two elders. First class formation apprentices can also join? Someone muttered. Suzai almost said loudly, when my Tegu sect recruits disciples, we first look at the spiritual root qualifications and secondly the specialties. Even the lowest level herbalist will be accepted as a disciple. I see. Everyone suddenly realized. Those martial artists who were originally worried about their qualifications, but had a skill were suddenly full of confidence. I know medicine. Go in. I'm a second-grade herbalist. Go in. At the end of the day, there were a total of more than 100 disciples, including 40 or 50 teenagers with middle-grade spiritual roots, and the rest had special skills. After Jun Changxiao finished his training, he took the entry statistics table and saw Yang Lan's name and murmured, the art of formation is very mysterious and it can be used to train a formation master. There are many kinds of formations in the 32 formations of Kimen, and he doesn't have time to study them all. If there are disciples who know formations, they can be handed over to them for research and benefit the sect. Chapter 545 Customs. The formation is really mysterious. Even the simplest isolation formation can play an unexpected role, as long as it is used properly. So Sect Master Jun has the plan to train a formation master. Although it is easy to upgrade with the formation qualification liquid. After all, as the leader of a sect, it is impossible for him to do it himself every time. Oh, it would be great if them all sold formation qualification liquid. The system said, host can refresh them all. Damn. It instigated me to spend contribution points again. However, today I recruited 100 disciples and gave more than 100 contribution points. It was about to exceed the upper limit, so Sect Master Jun pulled out the system mall. After buying the 10,000 swords returning to the sect, there was nothing worth buying in the intermediate mall, so I refreshed them all decisively. Ding. Contribution value 9,890/10,000 point. Jun Changxiao took a deep breath and murmured, I hope to get good things. Because of the uncertainty, he always felt like gambling, nervous and expectant. Fuck. After reading it, Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, there's nothing useful. It's common to not get good things in the primary mall. With the title of luck value plus 10, there's nothing when refreshing the intermediate mall. This luck is really bad. If you want to continue refreshing the mall, you must buy an item compulsorily. In other words, This time, at least 1100 contribution points will be wasted. Jun Changxiao's flesh and teeth hurt, and his whole body hurts. How can you see the rainbow without going through the wind and rain? Believe me, you can do it. Only when refreshing them all consumes contribution points, the system will know how to encourage people instead of attacking them with poisonous tongues. Damn it. I don't believe it. Jun Changxiao browsed them all carefully again, and finally gritted his teeth, and spent 1000 contribution points to buy a bottle of magic modified hairspray, which can make the hair have a lasting fixed effect. Reason for purchase. The head can be broken, but the hairstyle cannot be messed up. Jun Changxiao took a deep breath and scrolled down them all again. Ding. Contribution value 8790/10,000 point. Fuck you. After reading it, Jun Changxiao hit his head against the wall, wanting to cry but not tears. There is nothing good again. What's the use of this luck value? The system said, don't be discouraged, follow this rhythm, and continue to refresh. You will definitely get good things. I don't believe you. Jun Changxiao said. No more refreshing, no more playing. Unless the host does not need the intermediate mall in the future. Otherwise, you have to buy refreshers. In this case, why not refresh now? The system said. There is a little truth in it. Good. One more time. Jun Changxiao bought another multifunctional hairdryer, which can not only blow hair, but also shave. Washed his hair, blown his hair, make a billion hairstyle and apply hairspray. Perfect. Ding. Contribution value 7690/10,000 point. The third time that Master Jun refreshed them all, his eyes were almost wet. He spent 2300 contribution points in a short time, but only bought 2 daily necessities. It was absolutely painful. Fortunately, the third refresh did not disappoint him. A useful product appeared in the first row, called the Formation Sharing Bracelet. Share? Click for details. The so-called Formation Sharing Bracelet, after wearing it, can establish a sharing mechanism with the designated target, so that all the formations he arranged can be controlled. I thought it was a formation that was shared and understood by each other. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, it's useless. It's useful. The system said, when the host is away from home, the sect protection formation is either turned on every day, or always turned off. If the formation is shared with the disciples, he can turn it on, or off according to the situation. That makes sense. Jun Chang smiled. The sect protection formation was bought from them all. The disadvantage is that once it is turned on, it consumes contribution points. It is unrealistic to turn it on every day. If it is turned off, and he happens to be away from the sect, and a strong person comes to make trouble, it will be very fucked. Buy it. Spend 1000 contribution points to buy the formation sharing bracelet. It was a pair of exquisite small bracelets, with the words primary and secondary engraved on them respectively. After putting on the bracelet with the word primary, Jun Changxiao murmured, who should I give the secondary bracelet to? He first considered Li Qingyang. But a grown man giving a bracelet to a grown man, this is a bit exciting. Qianqian is not here, otherwise I would have given it to her. Jun Changxiao murmured. Master. Li Luoqiu walked in from outside and said, can you equip my Xiao hall with a few more physical training rooms? Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up immediately. In addition to carrying out special tasks, this woman is almost in the sect every day. It is undoubtedly the best choice to give her the switch of the sect protection formation. Master Li. Jun Changxiao smiled and said, I have a bracelet here. If you like it, you can take it. Li Luoqiu was stunned and said, you are giving me a bracelet? Is there a problem? Jun Changxiao said, of course there is a problem. Li Luoqiu said, it is a custom in Xinjiang continent that when getting engaged, the man will give the woman a bracelet to show his love. There is such a custom? Jun Changxiao was stunned. Li Luoqiu blinked and said with a smile, the master gave me a bracelet. Could it be that he has some feelings towards me? No. Jun Chang said with a smile, no feelings at all. Li Luoqiu said with a smile, so, the master should give it to a woman with feelings. Children of the Jiang who are not particular about trivial matters. Besides, I have given one to you before. Don't worry about customs. Jun Chang said with a smile. Who have you given it to? Luke Iron Kian. Li Luoqiu said in surprise. Is the bracelet on her hand a gift from the master? Yes. Jun Chang said with a smile. Li Luoqiu thought to himself, Luke Iron Kian is from an extraordinary family. She must know the custom of giving bracelets. Since she accepted it, this may be a problem. Don't waste time. Put it on quickly. Jun Chang smiled and threw the bracelet over and told him the function. I see. I was wondering why the master gave a bracelet for no reason. Li Luoqiu, who was born as a killer, would not care about customs and happily put on the exquisite bracelet. Don't mention it. The two quickly established a sharing mechanism. Li Luoqiu walked out of the hall, and with a thought, the sect protection formation that was in a stopped state was activated immediately. Ding. Sect contribution value 6680/10,000. Point. Whoosh. The formation closed. Whoosh. The formation opened again. Ding. Sect contribution value 6670/10,000. Point. Li Luoqiu had to try a few more times. Jun Changxiao ran out in a hurry and said in a panic, Master Li, this sect protection formation can't be used casually, otherwise, my calories are burning. Master, what are calories? On a snowy mountain, Luke Iron Kian stood gracefully. Because she was wearing a white school uniform, she seemed to be integrated with the world. I don't know how long it took. She retracted her gaze from the southwest direction and subconsciously looked at the bracelet on her wrist. After breaking through the martial arts sect, the bracelet's amplification effect is gone. Luke Iron Kian took it off gently. She wanted to throw the bracelet into the space ring, but after hesitating for a while, she put it on her hand again. Swish. Like a fairy flying down, the destination is the snowy Lizhou in northeast China. P.S. The 4th update is here. Please vote. Chapter 546. Eat, sleep, and play. After giving Li Luoqiu the shared bracelet, Sect Master Jun spent 200 contribution points to purchase 10 physical training rooms for Xiaotang. This thing is the same as the shaping room. It is an infrastructure and is mainly aimed at speed. The main focus of the newly initiated disciples is to shape the body and improve the spiritual energy, so the equipment equipped to Xiaotang is also trained in a killer way. After the head of the hall Li left, Jun Changxiao continued to browse the intermediate mall, and then saw another item, called the quenching pill formula. Click on the details. Item, quenching pill formula. Function, it can quench the spiritual energy in the cyclone and the spirit core, so as to condense a stronger combat power. Price 1000 contribution points. Jun Changxiao murmured, it seems very good. Ding. The host consumes 1000 contribution points and obtains the quenching pill formula X1, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Distribute contribution value 5470/10,000. Point. The formula automatically matches the alchemy pavilion. The 6 medicinal materials needed to refine this item happened to be available to sect leader Jun, who could refine 50 pills. So without saying anything, he pressed the button to maximize the number of pills. He continued browsing them all. Intermediate Thunder Art products appeared in his field of vision. The Spiritual Beast Pavilion had the primary Thunder Art, and the intermediate one was naturally an upgraded version. However, because there was no suitable Thunder Crystal core, Sect Leader Jun had not yet given the Purple Lightning Tiger the primary skill. Buy it first, so I can use it later. Ding. After buying the intermediate Thunder Art, it was automatically matched to the Spiritual Beast Pavilion. My goodness, this intermediate skill requires more Thunder Crystal cores. If Sect Leader Jun wants to collect enough, it will definitely take some time. It seems that I have to ask the purchasing department to pay more attention to Thunder Crystal cores. Jun Changxiao continued to browse them all and found that there was nothing good, so he took back the system panel. Keep brushing. The system merged. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes and said, I spent almost 6000 contribution points in a short while. If you don't feel bad, I do. Originally, I went for the formation qualification liquid, but I didn't get it after spending so many contribution points. This incident tells us that obsession has no response. However, it is still worth it to be able to get the elixir formula and the intermediate thunder technique. Ding. The prompt sound came, and the soul quenching pill came out. Jun Changxiao took out the pill, and opened his mouth, to drink it without hesitation. Hoo-hoo, in an instant, the spiritual energy in the two spiritual cores in the Danshan began to boil violently, and then began to quench and sublimate. When breaking through a great realm, the spiritual energy has a similar quenching. The third level of the training tower also has the effect of quenching spiritual energy. Now taking the soul quenching pill to experience it again, it feels really good. Half an hour later, the tumbling spiritual energy returned to normal. Jun Changxiao clenched his fists, and the spiritual energy gathered in the meridians, making him realize that his strength was obviously much higher than before. Bang! In the training room, a punch was thrown, and the power displayed was 4.5 million Jin. Oh my god. Jun Changxiao was surprised. After taking a quenching pill, it actually increased by 500,000 Jin. The system said, "This is not a strength boost, it is a permanent boost." Jun Changxiao's eyes were burning and he said, "Isn't it the same as the shaping pill? The shaping pill is to increase the strength of the physical body to drive combat effectiveness, and the quenching pill is to refine the spiritual energy to improve combat effectiveness. There is an essential difference between the two," the system explained. Jun Changxiao said, "If we can achieve mass production and let each disciple take one, it will definitely be very cool." It is cool, but there is a lack of materials. So medicinal materials, seeds and so on must be replenished. The next day, the members of the purchasing hall went down the mountain one after another to purchase martial arts resources in major cities, focusing on purchasing thunder crystal cores and medicinal materials or seeds for refining quenching pills. Seeds are easy to find, but medicinal materials and crystal cores are a bit difficult, especially the rare thunder crystal cores. Find some time to go and look for them in person. Jun Changxiao said, "The crystal cores with special properties must be in the deep mountains and old forests with many dangers. It is still a bit dangerous to give them to the disciples. However, with the improvement of the overall strength of the Tegu sect, the tasks released by the task publisher every day are constantly changing. Many tasks are mainly about hunting high quality beasts. This is inevitable. It must be inappropriate for a group of martial arts masters and martial arts disciples to do the tasks of delivering letters and carrying water every day." The fire dragon activated the second form, but it was still in a weak state. Yang Jun, who followed his daughter to the sect, has also been certified and has become the second chef of the Tegu sect. Yang Jun is an old expert in cooking, and the food he makes is not inferior to Liu Wanshi. The disciples of the Tegu sect have a new supply of delicious food, and they are full of passion when practicing. As for the cheating young man in white, he is still enjoying the torture from happy football, and his life is worse than death. Are you comfortable? That day, Jun Changxiao came to the cell to visit him. The young man in white was lying on the ground with messy hair, and said in a hoarse voice, Jun Sect Master, please forgive me." His whole face was swollen and blue, and there was no intact part. Jun Chang smiled and said, "If I don't forgive you, you would have died 10,000 times by now." The young man in white is a smart man. He knows that the other party will not kill him, and he must think that he is useful. But he doesn't say anything, but just abuses me every day. Is this interesting? Boy. Jun Chang smiled. "What's your name?" "Zhao Dao Dao." The young man in white said with difficulty. "Zhao Mu." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Keep beating me." "Yes." Suzaomo walked in from outside and beat Zhao Dao without saying a word. "Beat Dao when you eat and sleep." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Just because of your name, I feel embarrassed if I don't beat you." Zhao Dao collapsed on the ground, crying inside. Jun Chang smiled and said, "You have cheated at least 8,000 people in these years. You deserve to suffer a little in the Tegu sect." "Master Jun, I only cheated the rich and powerful. I have never cheated the poor," Zhao Dao said weakly. "Heh." Jun Changxiao said with a smile, "Are you still a chivalrous swindler?" Zhao Dao injured the pain and tried to make the words flow, saying, "The cheating record records all the cheating records and the people who were cheated after I became a master. except for when I was a child and didn't know better. I cheated a girl of the same age for her first kiss. All the people I cheated deserve to be cheated. After I became a master, Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, "From what you said, it seems that someone has taught you the art of cheating." Xiao Dao was silent. Jun Changxiao was not interested in asking further and said, "You will stay in jail from now on. If I'm in a good mood that day, I may let you go." Creak. The prison door closed. Suzaomo followed behind and said, "This guy pretended to be the head of the sect and cheated outside. His nature is very bad. Why not just kill him?" Jun Changxiao touched his nose and said, "He has some skills from a young age to a big age. I will lock him up in the sect first. Maybe he will be useful in the future." "Is it useless to keep him?" Suzaomo said. "That's definitely not possible. When you have nothing to do, just eat, sleep and play Dao Dao." "Master, I understand." Suzaomo raised the corners of her mouth and revealed a sinister smile. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547. One person, multiple jobs. After a few days of going down the mountain, the members of the purchasing hall returned with a full load. The most purchased items were medicinal herbs and seeds. There were also crystal cores and ores, but the proportion was very small. Jun Changxiao put the useful medicinal herbs into the space ring and refined various elixirs. The seeds were taken away by the people in the medicine hall. After being divided one by one, they would be soaked and planted in the seed breeding pool one by one. After this period of planning, the Iron Bone Sect gradually got on the right track. Many things would proceed in an orderly manner without the headmaster having to ask. The hands-off shopkeeper will be just around the corner. Old Wendy. Jun Changxiao took out the list of seeds for refining the quenching spirit pill and specifically reminded him, "These should be planted first. This seed has a great use." "Yes." Old Wendy took it, looked at it carefully and said, "Although the quality is high, it's not a big problem. It will mature in about 1 or 2 months. With the recovery of spiritual energy, the improvement of members, and the improvement of land, the current medicine garden is definitely not inferior to the big sects in cultivating medicinal herbs." After leaving the medicine hall, Jun Changxiao went to the Wolf Rider Hall. Zhu Ringui and Tao Yuan were discussing the training plan in the hall. They were so focused that the headmaster stood by for a long time before he saw them. "Headmaster." The two hurriedly bowed. Jun Changxiao folded his hands and said with a smile, "You continue. I will listen quietly." Zhu Ringui and Tao Yuan discussed again. They were talking about military training. Headmaster Jun didn't know much about it, so he didn't follow up and make comments. After a while, the two finished their discussion and listed a complete set of plans. Jun Changxiao said, "Under your leadership, I believe that the Wolf Riders will become stronger and stronger and become the strongest army in the Starfall continent." Zhu Ringui was old and his passion had settled down early. Tao Yuan, who was still young, hurriedly saluted and said in a loud voice, "I will definitely live up to the headmaster's high expectations." Next, Headmaster Jun watched the daily exercises of the new members of the Wolf Riders. There were only 1,000 Hurricane Wolves, and the new members could use them for training temporarily, while the old members focused on training. The Hurricane Wolf pack lives in the mountains, where spiritual power has revived. Their reproduction rate and growth rate will increase a lot. In the future, it will not be a problem for everyone to have one. Speaking of Hurricane Wolves, Sect Master Jun thought of journey to the west. In the second half of this year, China and the United States thought of the Hurricane Wolf King. Although this guy obeyed him in everything, he was just subdued, not really surrendered, so he had to sign a contract to become a contracted beast. At the beginning, Sect Master Jun's cultivation was not as high as the Hurricane Wolf King. If he forced the contract to fail, it would backfire on his soul. Now that he has entered the realm of sword and martial arts, he can naturally take it down. 2 hours later, Jun Changxiao successfully signed a contract with the Hurricane Wolf King and obtained another contracted beast. At the same time, in the primary wind control technique of the Spirit Beast Pavilion, the Wind Beast became 1/1, and all the data met the requirements, which meant that it could comprehend skills. Brush. In the forest of Tegu Mountain, a strong wind shot out, and the speed was so fast that it was jaw-dropping. Step. After a while, the Hurricane Wolf King stopped, and the hair, that seemed to be about to stand up gradually fell back, and the wind power gathered around his body dissipated, and his eyes were full of human excitement. Just now, a special energy penetrated into the sea of consciousness, allowing it to gain some kind of ability for no reason. After being stimulated, the speed was many times faster than before. This is the primary wind control technique. Although there are time limits and usage restrictions, it will greatly increase the movement speed in a short period of time. The Hurricane Wolf King, who is already famous for his speed, will definitely be more powerful after learning this skill. However, our sect leader Jun is in trouble. Because he was sitting on the back of the Hurricane Wolf at this moment, the short distance sprint under the sudden acceleration directly blew his hair into a straight shape. Damn it. I have to use hairspray to fix my hair when I go back. The two elders Ningduxing and Ningduzu were not idle either. They explained martial arts in the lecture hall every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and sat at the gate of the mountain on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday to recruit disciples. As the reputation grew, more and more martial artists joined the sect, and many of them were in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. Those who already have a good foundation in martial arts will definitely be accepted by the Tegu sect. However, they valued whether or not someone had a special skill. After more than 10 days of recruitment, they actually recruited quite a few warriors with special skills, such as 6th and 7th grade herbalists, and doctors who had studied medicine. They also recruited 4 formation masters. After some childish consideration, Jun Changxiao decided to create a formation hall, with the hall master being Li Luoqiu said, "Why am I working part-time again? It's hard work for a beautiful woman." Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Li Luoqiu said speechlessly, "You can open any other hall you want. I have more halls now. Now that you said that, you really reminded me." Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, Milhua Palace and Kangshan Sect both have discipline halls. Our Tegu Sect cannot be without one, so let's build one first, and you can take on the job. Li Luoqiu was even more speechless. The head of Xiao Hall, Purchasing Hall, Formation Hall, and Discipline Hall, who has more titles than me in this Xinjiang continent. The establishment of the Formation Hall and the Discipline Hall is just to prepare for the sect to be more perfect in advance. When they find more suitable candidates in the future, they will definitely not let Li Luoqiu take on the job part-time. There are only 587 disciples left to reach 10,000. Jun Changxiao murmured. According to this period of time, there are martial arts practitioners who worship every day. It should be full in less than a month. Master. Li Qingyang said. 2 new disciples fainted suddenly. Such problems often occur among the disciples recruited during this period of time, which makes him very puzzled. Is he sick? Only Sect Master Jun knows. The sudden fainting of the disciples who joined the sect must have been punished by the system. This means that some people joined not to practice martial arts, but to obtain secrets. People are afraid of being famous, just like pigs are afraid of being fat. It's a pity that no matter how much you struggle, if you have any disloyalty, when you come to my Tegu sect, your memory will be wiped out. As for the fainted disciples, Jun Changxiao directly expelled them from the sect. He didn't kill them, not because he was kind-hearted, but because he secretly ordered the people of Xiaotang to keep a close eye on the target, to see what force sent them. The one named Liu Xian was sent by the Temple of the God Killer, and the one named Sun Ke was sent by the Demon Sect. Li Luoqiu reported the information he had just received. Jun Changxiao sat on the chair, with his palms on his chin, and said, 2 third-rate evil sects are still obsessed with my Tegu sect. Should I give them a response? Li Luoqiu said, according to the intelligence received, the 2 factions have been very honest recently, and have not taken any action. Under her management, Xiaotang's intelligence network has extended a lot, especially the forces that are hostile to the sect, which can be said to be monitored around the clock. Jun Changxiao said, it seems that they just want to figure out why my Tegu sect has become so strong. Yes. That's what the two evil sects mean. Other forces may not have any ill will towards the Tegu sect, and they sent undercovers to figure out why a low-ranking sect rose in a short time. However, there is a system punishment mechanism, and the forces are destined not to take away any valuable information from the sect. Chapter 548 9th Rank Formation King. Jun Changxiao estimated that it would take at least a month to recruit 10,000 people, but the result was wrong. In the next few days, martial artists from far away arrived one after another, and the number of people who came to join the sect every day was several times more than usual. Look. At dawn, there were 700 to 800 martial artists gathered at the gate of the mountain. If you don't consider qualifications, you can definitely gather 10,000 people, which not only meets the certification standards of the sect, but also can trigger sect tasks. There is no such thing as random recruitment. The Ning brothers strictly followed the indicators of the head of the sect and asked one by one. In the end, only 200 martial artists met the entry standards. The next day, there were also 600 to 700 disciples who came to apply for entry. In this way, in just the 5th day, the number of sect members increased from 9413 at the beginning to 9999. One more person is missing. After hearing the prompt, Jun Changxiao's eyes flashed with heat. Head. Li Qingyang came to report. There is an old man outside who said he wants to see you. Entrance? He didn't say he wanted to enter. He just said he wanted to see you. Jun Changxiao walked out. At this moment, the martial artists who failed to join the Tegu sect had already left the mountain gate, making it look quite empty. In the breeze, there stood an old man in a long gown, who looked to be in his 60s or 70s, with black hair and sharp eyes, not looking old at all. Are you Jun Changxiao? His voice was loud, and at first glance, it felt like he was only 30 or 40 years old. This man was well maintained. Not bad. Jun Chang smiled and said, Senior, why did you come to my Tegu sect? The old man turned his head and said, I heard that your sect is recruiting heroes from all over the world, so I came here to join you. The Ning brothers frowned. You came in, so you said something. After coming here, you directly wanted to see the head of the sect, which was really arrogant. Jun Chang smiled and said, my Tegu sect does not accept unknown people. I wonder what is so special about you, Senior. His spiritual thoughts were always released, and he could not detect the other party's cultivation level. There are only two possibilities. One is that he deliberately hides his cultivation level, and the other is that he has no cultivation level at all. If it's the second one, I'm sorry, even if you're old, you have to go back the same way. The old man said, I'm not proficient in martial arts, but I have some knowledge of formations. If the Tegu sect lacks formation masters, I can reluctantly serve as the formation elder. The corners of the Ning brothers' mouths twitched. He wants to be an elder before he even joins the sect. This old man is so arrogant. Jun Chang smiled and said, whether you understand the formation is not just a matter of words, but also depends on actions. Plop. A waist badge with a gold border fell on the table, and the old man said, this is my proof of being a formation master. The Ning brothers looked down, and their faces changed. There were 4 characters engraved on the badge. 9th grade Formation King. Formation King? Still 9th grade. The Ning brothers have traveled all over the country, so they naturally know that, although there are many formation masters in the Xinjiang continent, it is still very rare to reach the level of 9th grade Formation King. Is this waist badge a fake? Jun Chang smiled and transmitted the message. Before Sun Bukong entered the sect, he was given a lot of badges of successes of the emperors, which made him cautious, fearing that the other party was a liar who was here to fool him. Ning Duxing took the waist badge in his hand. His spiritual thoughts permeated the complex patterns carved on it, and he transmitted his voice. Master, it's real. This waist badge representing the certification of the Formation Master is issued by the Formation Association. It contains a pocket formation. After the spiritual thoughts are stimulated, the authenticity can be seen, and it is almost impossible to forge it. Moreover, the Formation Association and the Certification Hall are non-powerful and authoritative organizations. They check very strictly on others' counterfeiting of tokens. Even if they can be counterfeited, no one dares to do it. Master Jun, the old man said, if you still don't believe it, I can personally arrange the formation for you to see. Okay. Jun Changxiao had to try it. What if he picked up the waist badge on the road? The old man said, Master Jun, what formation do you want me to set up? This. Jun Changxiao sent a voice transmission. Eldening, what formation is suitable for the formation king to set up? Although he is also a formation master, he has only learned the 32 formations of Keeman and has not systematically studied the formations of the Xinjiang continent, so he knows nothing. Master. Ningduxing sent a voice transmission. You can ask him to set up a top grade lightning formation. Formation masters are divided into levels, and formations are also divided into low grade and ordinary ones, just like weapon qualifications. The top grade lightning formation is just suitable for the formation king level. Of course. This is the division of the Xinjiang continent. Jun Changxiao relied on the formation qualification transformation fluid to improve himself, and the middle grade spirit gathering formation he arranged is not linked to this plane level division. If compared, his understanding of the formation and the spirit gathering formation he arranged can reach the king level. So, Master Jun is not the double king of sword and martial arts, but the three kings of sword and martial arts formation. Hush. Keep a low profile. Keep a low profile. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Senior, let's set up a lightning formation first. The old man shook his head and smiled. It seems that Master Jun still doesn't believe that I can set up a top grade formation. Okay. He waved his long sleeves and said, then I'll show you my skills. Whoosh, whoosh. Streams of light flew out from his sleeves, neatly inserted a few meters away from him, and formed a circle. Jun Changxiao looked, and found that there were small golden triangular flags. This is a formation flag. The system said, a prop used to set up a formation. Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, professional. Swish. The old man picked up a wooden stick, and waved it with one hand, and began to draw on the ground, just like a master holding a brush, and concentrating on painting. Very professional. This is what the Ning brothers thought. Swish. Swish. In just a moment, a complex formation line was drawn within the range covered by the formation flag, and the complexity was dazzling. As a formation master, Sect Master Jun could see the trick and secretly exclaimed, strong and powerful, like a dragon flying, and a phoenix dancing. This is definitely a formation master. Swish. When the last line was connected, the old man walked out, and threw away the stick, put his hands behind his back, held his head high, and looked like a master of his generation. But, in an instant, the formation just and the intricate lines flashed with light, making the front of the mountain gate shine brightly. Whoosh, the streamer barrier soared into the sky, and a formation was constructed in an instant. Good. Jun Changxiao couldn't help clapping his hands. Just from the smooth formation technique, he was sure that this was definitely a real talent. Sect Master Jun. The old man said, the lightning formation has been condensed, and you can send someone to test it. 2 elders. Jun Changxiao said, you go into the formation to find out. Ah. The corners of the Ning brothers' mouths twitched. The top grade lightning formation is a high level offensive formation. If you go in by yourself, you will definitely be in trouble. The reason why the formation kings are highly respected in the Xinjiang continent is that the top grade formations they set up are completely comparable to the martial kings. In terms of strength, they can't beat the martial king. But if you make a grudge, they will set up offensive formations at your doorstep every day. I don't believe you won't be killed. Ningduxing collapsed and said, if I had known this, I would have said a defensive formation. There is no way. I have to fill the hole I dug with my life. Boom. Boom. The Ning brothers walked in resolutely, and immediately heard bursts of thunder coming, and the formation barrier was shaking. Jun Changxiao couldn't bear to look at it, and turned his head, saying, Senior's understanding of the formation makes Jun admire it. Master Jun. The old man said, are you qualified to be an elder? Qualified. Jun Changxiao said, however, my Tegu sect does not have the position of formation elder. If you want to join, you can be the head of the formation hall. Sure enough, after his unremitting efforts, he built up the reputation of the sect, and even the 9th grade formation king took the initiative to join. At that moment, Master Jun felt a great sense of achievement. The old man pondered for a while and murmured, as long as I can taste the food made by that girl, it's not impossible to be a whole master. Gap. Master Jun was petrified instantly. Ahahaha. The laughter of the system echoed in his ears. Chapter 549. A real foodie. The 9th rank Formation King came to join the sect, and Sect Master Jun felt a great sense of accomplishment. But he was slapped in the face in a second, because he didn't come for the sect's reputation at all, but for Liu Wanshi. Recently in Yangzhou, the most talked about sect is the Tegu sect. But someone learned about the cooking competition that ended in the royal city not long ago. Who? This 9th rank Formation King. He has lived for hundreds of years and has only 2 hobbies: studying formations, eating all the delicacies in the world. Knowing that the Tegu sect disciple named Liu Wanshi won the championship after 3 rounds of competitions with full marks in all 3 rounds, he immediately became very interested. He had also watched the cooking competition before, but returned disappointed. Because he is very picky, he can find a lot of problems, even if he eats the food cooked by the champion. The reason why he came to the Tegu sect was to see how the food cooked by that girl could get full marks from all 10 judges. For eating. Join the Tegu sect. This 9th rank Formation King is also very characterful. Old people are more or less abnormal, so there is no need to make a fuss. However, our Master Jun was heartbroken. Could it be that the Iron Bone Sect, which I worked so hard to build, is not as attractive as the food made by Dudu? It hurts. My heart hurts. No. Jun Chang smiled and said, Dudu is also my disciple. It is also my credit that she can attract the 9th rank Formation King to join. After explaining himself like this, the whole person suddenly became energetic. Senior. He walked to the table, picked up the entry form and said, may I ask your name? The sect is still short of 1 person, and this is the 9th rank Formation King, so there is no need to consider recruiting him. As for whether he will leave, sorry, once you join my Iron Bone Sect, you will be a member of the Iron Bone Sect for the rest of your life. The old man put his hands behind his back and said proudly, Zendejin. Hearing this name, the muscles on Jun Chang's smiling face solidified instantly. Liu Wanshi's father was called Aoyang Jun, which was acceptable, but this guy's really handsome was a bit fucked up. Why don't you be more shameless and call him Zendeshuari? So it's Senior Zendexiu. I'm so sorry, Zendejin. The master's seal was stamped on it, and he said, Zenleo, from today on, you are a member of my Tegu sect. Zendejin said, Master, I want to meet the girl who won the cooking competition. Old man. Do you know how much mental damage this sentence brought to Master Jun? Can't you show the kind of ecstasy from the bottom of your heart about joining the Tegu sect? Whoosh. The lightning formation was removed. Ninduxing and Ninduzu lay on the ground with their bodies charred, and their hair turned into afro. It can be seen how terrible the attacking king level formation is to be able to make 2 high-grade martial kings so embarrassed. Master. Liu Wanshi wiped her hands on her apron. Then walked into the hall and asked, why are you looking for me? Jun Chang smiled and said, this senior who just joined the sect wants to taste the food you cook. Liu Wanshi looked at Zendejin and curled her lips and said, Master, the meal is about to start, and the disciples have to be busy. The Tegu sect now has nearly 10,000 disciples. Although Aoyang Jun helps, it is a very heavy workload to cook every meal. There is no time to show off your cooking skills to others. That's right. Jun Chang smiled and said, go and get busy first, and we'll talk after you're done. Okay. Liu Wanshi returned to the cafeteria. Master Zen. Jun Chang smiled and said, it will be time for dinner soon, and you can eat with everyone. Zendejin shook his head and said, the cooking of a chef is just like me arranging a formation. The arrangement just now was so casual. Even if it was also a lightning formation, its power is definitely not as strong as the careful arrangement. Ha. This means that the previous lightning formation was just casually made, and it can be arranged in a stronger level? Jun Chang smiled and said, old Zen, you don't know that Dudu is very demanding in his pursuit of food. Even if he cooks a big pot of food, it can be called a delicacy on earth. Really? Zendejin said, then I'll try it. From his eyes, it can be seen that he is very skeptical. After all, a sect has so many disciples, and the workload of cooking is huge. If it is done in a hurry, it must be soulless. Canteen. Because there are more and more disciples, Leaking Gyang has expanded it many times, and it can now accommodate 10,000 disciples. For now, the widest and largest building of the Tegu sect is here. It's time for dinner. The disciples rushed in, with sincere smiles on their faces. Practicing martial arts is undoubtedly a boring thing. Being able to eat a delicious meal can sweep away all fatigue and troubles. Jun Changxiao reformed the canteen, imitating the canteens of the world's units and schools. Disciples need to line up with plates to receive meals. Zendejin came early. Seeing the rice buckets and dishes on the dining table, he shook his head. Obviously, these meals are cooked together from a big pot. The more so, the more soulless, so it can only be evaluated as a failure. Zen Leo. Jun Changxiao came with a plate and said with a smile, "This is your first time joining the Tegu sect. I will personally serve you food." This shows how eager a boss is to recruit talents and how sympathetic he is to his subordinates. Whether you believe it or not, I can't make it up anymore. Zendejin glanced at the rice, 3 dishes and 1 soup, shook his head and said, "Food without soul will only make me lose hope in life." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. This old man is really a bit arrogant. Master Zen. Jun Chang smiled and said, "You can't judge the quality of food by appearance alone. Only after you have eaten it can you give a fair evaluation." Okay. Zendejin picked up the chopsticks and said, "I will try it with all my heart." As he said that, he picked up a piece of eggplant and reluctantly put it into his mouth, tasting it with the mentality of a very picky customer. Chew slowly. Feel slowly. A little bit. Zendejin put down the chopsticks and said with trembling hands, "What did I eat? It was definitely not rice." Swish. He put down his airs, picked up the chopsticks, and ate the eggplant. The way he ate, the speed at which he ate. It was completely impossible to tell that he was a picky eater, but more like someone who hadn't eaten for a few days. "Brother," Suzayomo whispered, "is the head of the sect so kind that he took in a beggar who hadn't eaten for a few days?" "Don't talk nonsense," Leaking Gyang said. "This is a 9th grade formation king." Ah. Suzayomo widened her eyes. She didn't know much about the formation, but she had heard of the formation king. Aren't such awesome people all masters of the Taoist spirit? How come they are not as elegant as a rough man like me when eating? The other disciples were also discussing in a low voice. They didn't know that Zendejin was not hungry for a few days because he hadn't eaten. It was because he encountered such delicious food that he couldn't control himself at all. Although Suzayomo and others could taste that the food made by Liu Wanshi was delicious, that was all, and they didn't dig deeper. Zendejin was different. He was a foodie, a real foodie. After eating all 3 dishes and 1 soup, Zendejin looked up and sighed. "After eating, every inch of my skin and every hair seemed to resonate with the heaven and earth. This is the soul I'm looking for. I'm lucky enough to taste it, and I have no regrets in this life. P.S. The 4th update is here. Please vote." Chapter 550 Zendejin, am a man of iron bones. I will never leave you in this life. Just the food cooked together in the big pot made Zendejin eat his soul. He is really a real foodie. This also shows that Liu Wanshi's cooking skills are really strong. If she cooks for him slowly and carefully, her soul will fly out of Xinjiang continent and fly to the Sea of Stars. It's decided. From this moment on, I, Zendejin, will be a member of the Iron Bone School. If I have to add a time limit, it will be a lifetime. In ancient times, Wang Mao Mao could betray his country with a bowl of fried rice. Today, Zendejin is determined to join the school after a meal. It will surely become a good story for the ages. You are all witnesses. Zendejin, whose soul seemed to be floating, suddenly locked his eyes on the door and said in a cold voice, "Wei King Feng." Wei Leo, who had just entered, was surprised and said, "Zendejao? Zendejao?" Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched, and he transmitted the voice. "Isn't his name Zendejin?" Wei Leo said, "The original name was Zendejao, but later he felt it was ugly and changed it to Zendejin himself." Damn. Is there such a thing? Speaking of which, the way Zen Leo looked at Wei Leo must be an old acquaintance, and the resentment that emerged was similar to Leng Xingyu. Could it be his 20th ex-boyfriends? Oh my. He kills both men and women. This is a bit awesome. Humph. Zendejin said coldly, I didn't expect you to be in the Tegu sect. Wei Lao said, so many years have passed, and you still hold a grudge about the past? More than holding a grudge, I will never forget it. Zendejin gritted his teeth and said, the more this happened, the more Jun Changxiao felt that the two old men must have had an unknown fate in the past. Ah. Wei Lao sighed and said, why are you so stubborn? Humph. Zendejin sneered, if I had listened to your nonsense and founded the sect with that person, I would probably be dead now. That person? Who? Elder Wen's eyes were filled with pain, and he said, the past is over. Just now I heard that a formation master joined the Tegu sect, and it must be you. Now that you and I are under the same roof, it can be considered a fate. Zendejin said, it is rumored that the Tegu sect has a martial emperor, and it must be you. If I knew, I would definitely not join. Master Jun. He bowed and said, this person has a grudge against me. I apply to withdraw from the sect. Just now he said that he will be with me for a lifetime, and he turned around and was about to leave. The thinking span of old people is really very large. This. Master Jun hesitated for a moment and said, I respect the choice of the senior. The two of them don't get along, and it must be awkward to be in the same sect. Since they are leaving, they will naturally not stay. The pearl jade white jade soup is here. At this time, Liu Wanshi's voice sounded, and the disciples who helped him, such as Yahi and Dahi, came out with several pots of hot soup. Pearl jade white jade soup. Addition the Chinese recipe book. It is said that it originated from Zhu Yuantang, the first emperor of the Ming dynasty. Liu Wanshi has been thinking about it recently, and later succeeded in mixing it. Today, she made it, and specially let her fellow disciples taste it. What a nice smell. Zendejin, who was about to leave, smelled the fragrance in the air, and his eyes suddenly became excited. As soon as Ahui put down the soup bowl, he picked up the spoon and tasted it. Tada! He stepped back a few steps, and the muscles on his face solidified. After a while, he looked up at the sky with an extremely exaggerated expression and exclaimed, this soup should only exist in heaven. How can it be smelled in the world? The meal just now was nothing more than a big pot dish. This pearl jade white jade soup was carefully cooked by Liu Wanshi. Whether it is taste or flavor, it has reached the pinnacle of gourmet food. An expert in eating, Zendejin's soul has really flown out of the Zingayan continent and flew to the endless sea of stars. Master, he said with a firm look, I, Zendejin, am a member of the Iron Bone School, and I will never leave you in this life. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. One moment he retreated, and the next moment he would never leave you. Is this old man sick? Sick? A terminal illness with zero resistance to food. After tasting the pearl jade white jade soup, Zendejin truly decided to stay in the Tegu sect. Such good food was enough to make him forget his past hatred. Old Wendy. Walking out of the cafeteria, Jun Changxiao asked, who is that person? Old Wendy said, like the sect master, a man with a dream. You founded the sect? That's right. What happened later? Later. Elder Wendy paused, shook his head and said, the past is too painful to look back on. Jun Changxiao was very tactful and didn't continue to ask. After returning to the study, he pulled out the attribute panel. The number of disciples is 10,000, which has met the conditions for upgrading to a sect. Moreover, the number of people is full, and new sect tasks have been opened. When all the disciples complete them, the construction of the sect will also be improved. It can be said that it is a double happiness. More importantly, the appearance of sect tasks means that 10,000 contribution points can be obtained in succession. Let the disciples do the tasks first, and upgrade the construction, before upgrading the sect. Jun Changxiao murmured. Now there is another problem that must be decided. According to Deacon Zhao, when the sect is upgraded to a sect, the name can be changed. Of course. As long as the master of the sect is willing, it can be changed at will now. The sect is different, because it has the qualification to be named Zhang, so this change has become very solemn. As for the name of the Strongest Sect, not to mention the readers at the beginning, even the head of the sect wanted to complain, but because he was busy with development, he never thought of changing the name. The sect was promoted to a sect. If the word sect continues to be used, it will be a bit cheap. If it is changed to Strongest Sect, it will definitely be difficult to adapt to it for a while. If you change the sect to a sect, you must consider it carefully. If you are not careful, it may cause readers to abandon the book directly or turn from fans to haters. Jun Changxiao smiled. The system said, "You're lucky they don't call you a dog." Regarding the name of the sect, Jun Changxiao thought of several, but in the end, they were not good enough, and he was still undecided. On the other side, the disciples began to accept daily tasks. Newcomers with low star ratings accepted, and higher level practitioners accepted. The entire Tegu sect was a bit more lively than before. After Zendejin joined, he tasted the food made by Liu Wanshi and was deeply addicted to it. He even took the initiative to say, "Master, as the saying goes, you should be grateful if you have anything to say to me, Master Zen." Jun Chang smiled and said, "I have some disciples with the qualifications for formations. You can go and train them. No problem." Zendejin agreed readily. This excited Yang Lan and others. After all, that was the 9th grade formation king. It was a great honor for him to be able to teach him the formation in person. Ding. The disciple completed the sect mission and obtained 50 contribution points and 50 achievement points. Ding. Sect contribution value 4,920/10,000 point. Ding. Sect achievement value 2,250/10,000 point. Some disciples had already completed the sect mission first. Jun Chang smiled and held his chin, saying, "Next, the contribution value will continue to increase. I have to spend some money in advance to make room." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.